for Stacy. So we should probably get ourselves rolling so we can stick to our time. It's 8:07. And here's our check-in information again. The question of the day is, what is your favorite Christmas movie? If you're not a Christmas person, do you have another favorite movie? Or if you're not a movie person, do you have a favorite holiday song, something that really clicks with you in some way around the holidays is the idea. And we'll do our name, position of the district, how we're doing today, time constraints, students missing, issues, elements, our expectations for the day. Anybody want to get us rolling?
I will,
Okay.
because I just watched Christmas Vacation the last few nights, because my daughter loves Christmas movies, and we're not doing the Hallmark Channel variety, but it is super funny if you haven't seen it in a while. Awesome. When he starts chugging that eggnog. It is.
All right, Lisa, you skipped all the other boring stuff. Man, I was really good to the fun stuff.
No elephants, no issues. Expect success.
Awesome. Christmas vacation. Which way you want to go, right or left?
I'll go to Lindsay.
Okay.
All right, Lindsay Henschel, assistant principal, Glen Springs High School. A little bit of a headache today, but I'll drink my coffee. I'll start each other. Time constraints. This was my son's having his wisdom teeth out this morning. My husband's taking him, but I might, if he has to go teach third period, AP environmental science, I might have to go pick the kiddo up. So.
Yeah, you had mentioned that to us last time.
I will have my phone and just be checking that. I don't think anyone's missing except Stacy.
Just Stacy.
I can't think of any issues or elephants right now, and I'm expecting that we're gonna get into committees and really dig into this. And my favorite Christmas movie is Miracle on 34th Street.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Grant. I'm the principal of the Salt Elementary School. I'm feeling great. I'll try not to be the cousin Eddie today. And yeah.
Did you have a favorite Christmas movie?
Christmas vacation. Yeah,
Okay,
that was my birthday.
okay, that was your reference. Okay, thank you.
Anna Rivera, 6th grade science at Columbus Springs Middle School. I'm a little flustered. We got a lot going on at school, so I'm trying to keep my mind here. Time constraints, I have to be here at 4 at the piano for 30. I'm excited to get to hopefully start committee work here, and I've never done that before. I've been done it before. Favorite Christmas movie is The Bears Christmas.
So yeah.
I love when they see the tree and they open up the tree and there's little birds. Watch it. Stephanie West, who's our teacher at Sopris. I'm good, no time constraints. This isn't anyone that's listening. I'm really excited to committee work starting today. We've got a new experience and hopefully set it up for success. And Home Alone is our favorite.
Okay, great.
Megan Talbot, 2nd grade, dual language at the Salt Elementary, and I am doing fine today. And I don't have any time constraints, and Stacy's missing, and I don't have any issues with elephants right now. And my expectation is that we will begin committee work today. And my favorite Christmas movie was it took me many years and many times watching it, but It's a Wonderful Life. And that's because it was my father's favorite Christmas movie, and he would always insist every year, we have to watch It's a Wonderful Life. Don't you love this part? And he would like tell them, and then over the years, I grew to love it. And also my dad is on my mind today because he just had some major surgery yesterday. So just thinking about this.
We'll be thinking about it.
Miles Cook. I teach social studies at Columbus Springs High School. I'm here all day. No elephants, expectations, let's get some stuff done. And I don't really.
How about a favorite movie?
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, yeah. Science at school. Doing our today.
Don't have any time constraints, but I might be checking in on my students who are taking the test right online, so I'll spy on them. Don't have any issues. I have no expectations at all. I do like Christmas vacation, but nobody has mentioned Die Hard.
Oh, man.
Yes. Thank you. I was so ready.
That's great.
I'm Jacob. I teach fourth grade at Flemington Elementary School. I'm doing great today. No time constraints or issues with elements. And I'm expecting to continue to learn a lot and to get some work done today. My favorite Christmas movie is A Nightmare Before Christmas.
My name is Nathan Markham. I'm the chief financial officer for the district. Bill and Mike, I was just here. We don't care last time about mine. I have a meeting at 3:45. I have to take. Stacy's missing. No issues, expectations.
Jonathan, how are you, man?
Complete the work till. Okay. And I like Christmas vacation, but also I usually discovered nothing.
It's great. I would.
And
Maybe that.
good man, Michael, can't actually start out with a bunch of puppets, which is fairly amazing.
My name is Kenny Taylor. I'm on the school board. I'm doing well today. Meeting at like 4:30, I think, and my expectations is that everybody will work well together. And I will go with health. That's
Nice.
My name is Jason Santo. I'm assistant principal at Basalt Middle School. I'm doing great today. No time constraints. Expectations is just keep moving forward, progressing. Favorite movie from Christmas is Home Alone, which has been watched like 40 times this holiday season by my kids. Wow.
Hi, my name is Alicia Grimes. I'm at Roaring Fork High School. I teach science and STEM over there. I know about Lindsay's husband and the AP. We talked about it in our department meeting. He's like, I will be out in the morning, just like you, Alicia, all day. So, time constraints, unlike normal, I don't have any today. Who is missing? Yeah, Stacy. Does anybody know? I guess on like expected arrival. Okay.
Then elementary level should be over.
Okay. And then issues and elephants, I don't have any expectations. I expect that I will be impressed by people's contributions. I am every time I come to this. And I really enjoy spending time with everybody in here. That's, again, I'm just always really impressed with the caliber of conversation that happens here, and comments that people make. And then my favorite Christmas movie, initially I was gonna say Gremlins, but I thought that was kind of dark. So then I was like, maybe I shouldn't say that. So then hearing about the Muppets made me think of like, what is it, like the Otter Jug Band Christmas?
And an honor.
Emmett Otter, yeah. So we only have part of it on a tape that my dad didn't record over. So with band stuff, but anyways, yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I'm Maddie Hayes. I'm the CLDE coach at Basalt Middle and High School. I'm good today. I'm really tired. I have to leave at 3:45 for a meeting also. Things missing, no issues or elephants, and kind of what everyone has said for expectations of looking forward to being in committees and starting that work. My favorite Christmas movie, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I grew up watching like the original animated little shorts of Rudolph and Frosty the Snowman. We like watch that every single year, so I think those are like my most watched Christmas movie, but I really like The Grinch.
My name is Nina Asher. I'm fourth grade at Riverview. I'm feeling good today, ready to start working. No time constraints. Stacy's been saying no elements. Excited to get to work. Favorite Christmas movie is probably Love Actually.
I'm Heather Wilson. I am an SSM teacher at River Elementary. I have a parent whose car broke down and parents texting me, so I apologize. I've been on the phone. So some of that may be coming up for me, to help things get sorted out in the classroom while I'm gone. So that's stressing me out a little. Time constraints, I need to, my daughter's flying home from college tomorrow, so I need to check her in for her flight at 2:15. This is her first time flying on her own. Stacy's missing issues or elephants, not expectations. Just expecting that we will probably get to committees and start diving in to that stuff.
I'm Grace Rosella. I work at Carbondale Middle School, English language development teacher. I'm feeling great today, no time constraints, no issues. I expect to get work done. And my favorite Christmas movies, like the really cheesy Hallmark movies where the girl goes to find herself and then she meets that hunky guy and he's also like super handy, just does everything thoughtful, and he's a secret millionaire.
I know Christmas movie, sorry, is, no, I forgot to do it. I love that.
Is it home for the holidays?
There's so many. Love the Secret Millionaires. But I also love A Christmas Story, and you know, shoot your eye out.
Movie's great. I'm Anna Cole, I'm your interim superintendent. I'm great today. I have to take a phone call at 2, so I'll have to step out and then have to head up to BES for strategic planning at 4. Stacy's missing, also Lindsay DeFreitas is missing. She's our board rep and she's out of town on a work trip. Lindsay's also missing. No issues, elephants, expectations, just that we'll keep moving. And I hope to get a better sense of like where we're going as our group is working on. I don't have a favorite Christmas movie, but I adore and have since I was little. They're like, it's so sappy, the John Denver and Muppets Christmas album, like, and it still makes me cry. There's a couple songs on it.
Okay, now I'm just like riffing. She's in marketing, she's home, she's running the family business.
You're right.
That's maybe Scottish.
At Carbolera, Bridges High School, I'm a teacher. I'm doing pretty well. There's been a lot going on, but we're here. I do have an important family call to take at 11 o'clock. And yes, Stacy and Lindsay missing, no issues, no elephants. I think we exercised the elephants last time. And yeah, I just want to get as far along as we can. And you know, my wife tries to get everyone together to watch the Charlie Brown Christmas, and it never works. There's a lot of resistance. We do come together to watch Die Hard almost every year, which I think is a good metaphor, you know, for our work here. That's kind of the negotiation in that film, maybe an antithetical one to the kind that we want to have. Hopefully nothing goes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Begonia Flagship Human Resources, doing great today. I do need to jump on a 3:45 meeting as well. Stacy Lindsay are missing. No issues. I am ready to start learning, moving forward. And yes, diehard fan. And here goes a little tidbit of how Mexican open channels work. For years, and I never had cable while living in Mexico. And every Christmas, no matter what, they would play Titanic without commercials. Every Christmas, so it's not a Christmas movie, but if I watch Titanic 25 times, it's a good number, yes, absolutely. That was my Christmas tradition.
My name is Rusty George. I'm your facilitator. I'm well today. I'm glad there was no shooting at my motel last night. Apparently just a couple of doors down, somebody called a complaint in of which I could not hear. And for about 15 minutes, a lot of beating on the door. And the individual wouldn't come to the door. So finally the police came to beat on the door, beating on the door so hard that everything in the room vibrated. And then I'm like, are they standing right in front of the door or up to the side with guns drawn? I decided I would not step into the hallway. And finally, whoever's in there did actually come to the door and there was no yelling or screaming. So something got resolved and I went to sleep. Very, very exciting. There's always something at a motel in Rifle that I tried differently at the start of this year. Two drunk workers just full on carrying on in the hall full blast at like 2 a.m. It happens. It's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, no, hostels.
So it's always weird. And we know who's missing, no issues, elephants. I like the no expectations idea. I think that's okay, but I also really have an expectation that we'll finalize the topics and interests to work on for the year, get you into committees and make some progress of really creating timelines, what resources you're going to need, what are the goals that you have, and making sure that we're dialed in on that together and you know when you're going to meet again. And then also making sure we set meeting dates out into March. Just looking at my calendar, and I know all of you too as well, wanting to get things planned. Hopefully we can get that done. My favorite Christmas movie, growing up as a kid, it was A Wonderful Life. That was the movie I really remember liking so much. The reality is that it doesn't have to be a Christmas movie. It's really just more about life in general and the impact that we all have. But as I got married and then started things, that movie situation changed. And in my wife's family, it's the musical version of Scrooge. And with Albert Finney, it is fantastic. It's just a wonderful movie. So we watch that all the time. And then my daughter just has the schedule of Christmas Story and The Grinch and all the other ones that she has to do. So, and I have already watched one of those Hallmark type movies. And my family usually doesn't appreciate me because I make fun of them. So I've learned to be surprised by what happens. Can't believe that. Yeah.
Show you that in a flower shop.
And before we get going further, who is going to be our note taker today or note takers? I don't want to just put that on the two amazing note
I can
takers.
work on it if somebody else will
I can
double check me and overwrite me with it.
yeah.
We guys do it on the same. Yeah, I'll have some cool bookmark to the bottom.
Okay, so we're just going to roll from where we were last time. Good. So we have continuity of things. Excellent. So we did a good job with our check-in. We've got a fair share agreement review presentation by Nathan. Got a break after we wrap that up, a calendar committee report by Stephanie, and then get back to our interest gathering around the topics. And then essentially, once we get those laid out, go through an evaluation process to select which topics we'll work on. try and figure out what committees might be needed for those, get people to select committees, and then start that foundational work for the committee. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get that point, just to help us all. And then want to set our date for the future meetings. And then I don't know why my slide's not fully showing everything. The other thing to do would be to have a joint communication. And how do you guys do your joint communication? Is that something that you have traditionally done and go out with some sort of a school district newsletter or something like that?
We used to do it
Just an email. Okay.
That is jointly written by our CEA president, HR director.
Okay, good. One thing to kind of help with that is if somebody might think about having that be their task to kind of to structure some basics about that and then have something laid out so we don't have to just wordsmith the entire thing from the start. That will drag on and people are really tired. So that really helps if somebody kind of will keep track and just give a general review of what happened for the day. And then we'll just do a checkout at the end of the day again, and certainly understand those of you that said you had those little time constraints to deal with. And we'll also do lunch from 12:30, depending on where we are at a point in time. All right. Cool. Here, just to put it up because we're not quite there yet, but I did actually go back and look at the list in the notes, and it matches, I'm pretty sure, the same thing that was laid out over here by Adam. Not nearly as cool as Adam's print and so forth is. I was talking typing earlier, and so I took my typing class in high school, and I was abysmal at it. I thought I would get better. I never have. And when I became a teacher, I was like, oh, I'll get so much better at writing on the board. That didn't happen. I would be so excited when somebody would raise their hand in class. Oh, Johnny has a question. And it was, what is that word? What is that letter? That was the predominant question that I would get. These are the main topics that we went through last time. We had ended on the equity of teacher workload. And I think we were finished with that one. So now we just need to move on, present what's next, and then I need to turn the screen over to whoever's going to be note taking. However, we did that last time. I've forgotten how that went down.
Oh, yeah.
And I can actually, you know what, I don't need to take some, I can go right to that file from my computer. That works.
Yes, you have,
I
access to
got
that
access to
document.
that.
Okay.
I had a very old computer, and now I have a new computer, so.
But yeah, you got a computer in the truck.
That's all right, that's all right. Driving back from Phoenix 2 days ago, beautiful brand new truck, I decided I would let a rock hit the windshield and crack it.
Oh, man.
And yesterday I got it filled, so that worked out okay. Everything is so small. Okay. Oh, and one thing I didn't put up that I think we should do first to wrap up. I don't know why I didn't put it on because it was in my brain, and that is our norms. We should just agree and finalize on the norms. So I just copied what had been done last time. And you'll notice there's sort of two stacks there. And the top are the real behavioral norms. The others are more process oriented, if you can read those. Bigger and bigger. I'm at 200.
Rusty, is this document somewhere that you're?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure if I put it in an appropriate place or not. That's already passed. There we go. Let me make sure it's in the appropriate folder for everyone to see. Everything is just so tiny.
all your settings when you're in like mirroring mode.
Yeah, and not ever having used this computer in this way, I don't have anything set up. So let me see, I do believe this is in the folder 2023. And I think it's possibly in agendas. That, anybody go there and see if it's there or not?
Yeah, I got it.
I think that's where it is.
Yeah, we found it.
Okay. So this is what we had shared last time. And then the things below are definitely process things that they're not having to do with anything behavioral within our meetings. Does anybody have anything else they thought of that they wanted to add to these? We had dialogue around them all. Over and see if there's anything else you'd like to add. Any clarification about? We can always go back and add something.
That's just.
I don't know the IBB norm discretion in subcommittees, I don't remember what that refers to, and so maybe the wording of that needs to change or something.
That we want to share out what's going on in the subcommittees
With the
with the larger population.
Because to me, though, that wording says like, don't say much in subcommittees.
Right, right. Stay quiet and subcommittees don't share.
I think it's because they were filming.
What?
I think it was because they were filming.
I think so.
that
I
we
was
should
thinking the
film
wording
the
is
subcommittees,
Yes.
because
Happens with-
there could be like very wild ideas and maybe much like it.
Nate, that you have a way you think it should be phrased?
It's basically required for whatever was discussed in the subcommittee stays. And then that subcommittee.
Megan, do you have?
Subcommittees equals Vegas rules.
Vegas rule on
Yeah, but
subcommittees?
I will say sometimes we, within a subcommittee, will be like, we want to like.
Yeah.
To go get answers from different entities, and by doing that, like, you kind of are, it's not really the Vegas rule, right?
Right.
Because sometimes we even invite people in, like, I think Lindsay at one point came into one of our subcommittee meetings. Like several years with Rick. I don't, yeah.
It seems to me it's more about sharing options of things versus having input, because you could send a survey out, you could reach out to a particular expert to bring information in. So there will need to be some sharing in that way. But if the calendar committee threw out that they were looking into a 4-day week, and that gets out, then everybody in the community is gonna go wacko over such a thing. Or if you're gonna extend from this date to this date, oh, that's gonna, so that sort of thing. Is there some way to phrase it?
Discretion in subcommittee communications, or just put it that way.
Yeah,
I like
that's
what
broad.
Stephanie said, discretion in sharing out information from subcommittees.
Yeah.
Sure, you know why they share with IBB.
Yeah.
But not.
But sharing outside of the IBB. Yeah. The wider world.
To the district employees,
No, it's just.
So the public.
public, okay.
Outside.
Wordsmithing.
Subcommittee work.
Subcommittee work. That seem okay? Wordsmithing is like the slowest part of all of the things you will do. And it is extremely important because it can be viewed in different ways. Okay, everybody on the team understand the gist of that? you can share out. I'm on the subcommittee that's working on this area. And we're making good progress. Okay, anything else on the list that need to clarify or wordsmith? Anything need to be added? All right, we're ready to thumb it?
What about the stuff underneath?
Yes, let me roll it up for you. Thank you. That's a good thing. We don't want to be thinking hiding something there. Come on, person.
Did we discuss about, yeah, like more logistical things like, and I don't remember what they were, but I'm thinking right now, one thing might be like, make sure you determine like a process norm might be like, make sure you determine a timeline for your work or something like that, or I mean, that's obvious, like we always do that, so I don't know if that's something that we have to put in, but what other process norms for before? Communicating, like joint communication, or maybe the notes you'd mentioned, some other kind of note format that you might have or something. I don't know if we need to document that here, but I think so. Oh.
Good points.
Do we want to talk about the implementation one? I know we kind of got like, I don't know, it came up at the end, at the conversation about norms, that in the past, there has been some lack of resolution on some of the interests and the work that was done by subcommittees, not resulting in changes, basically. That things are just, you know, like we agreed to disagree or whatever. I don't know if that's something that we do want to get into or not. I just think if we choose only interests that we know we can implement, that like this might be part of today's process and narrowing down or deciding interests, right? That we don't want to take on interests that there's a potential for us not to get a resolution on, or you know what I mean? Because I feel like at the end of last year, we had a laundry list of things that we said we would do this year. I don't know, people who were here last year, you guys remember that? At the very last meeting, we had a laundry list that was long of things that we did not get to. That we said we're gonna start this meeting with, and that's kind of, those have been kind of pushed off to the side a little bit. Some of them have kind of resurfaced in pieces, right? But there's a lot of stuff from that list that we haven't talked about. And I don't think was part of our dialogue as RFCEA members. We did not pull up that document of what we agreed we would work on this year with. So I don't know, I just think like the lacking resolution for that, I just think it can cause some consternation or whatever on the work that we do.
I think it's really critical when we get to choosing which particular topics we're going to work on, is making sure that the things that are chosen to be improved, worked on, for options provided for, that there is a mechanism to implement them. That there are the people in the room that can make that happen, and there's a specific plan for that, so it's not just dropped at the end. I would also say there's kind of a bit of a hanging moment here in terms of what happens tomorrow with the work around the master agreement that's going to take place, because a master agreement should have everything about the negotiation process in it. And so don't know if you wanted to do double work. The other thing I would say that it would be, to me, something that you could create a small committee for to work on organizing that process, so that we don't all sit here working on that process together. But it is absolutely critical that you just have a solid process that you count on, and you know how each component is going to happen. So Rob or Jonia or Anna, do you have anything to talk about the master agreement, if that's gonna be a possibility this year. What's the thoughts around that?
We're meeting tomorrow as the first working group.
Time
What
on
is our process?
One of my wonderings after the last meeting on that question exactly, Alicia, was like, do we have the right cadence of meetings with this team that isn't vulnerable to turnover and is more systemic? Like, I'm just curious about what would it look like if I had quarterly time set aside that we all knew on our calendars in March for the subsequent year, and that there was some accountability on implementation through that. Like, I think there's some interesting process questions that we should grapple with in terms of structure and how we meet, when we meet, what that, like, where is that information? Because I think and how, how come, and that's the purpose of the master agreements, tighten up those pieces so that we don't have those vulnerabilities, but I do think that that's a component of that. Maybe it's in the agreement, or maybe there is a subgroup that really looks at like, with what we're trying to collectively achieve, do we have the right calendar for that? Thinking about accountability, and I know, like, on Robin, my list today is like, we need a cadence. I would love to know that, that we're gonna work on like third Thursday of the month. We always meet, and like, it doesn't matter who's sitting in the superintendent role, that is the meeting with the RFCA president. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do we build those structures so that there is that? So,
And also not that, like, I feel like we're always floundering to like find the next time to meet, and if I knew in April that the 3rd September is when we send out the teacher survey, and the 1st Tuesday of October is when we, like, that, I think would really help us not focus on the scheduling and focus on the work that has to get done.
I mean, maybe you could address that just in that like second bullet up top, where it says like keep doing the work until the work is done. And because the work being done means that there is a plan for implementation, and right, isn't that the final step in everything? Maybe that's not it, the third bullet, it's the oh, it's the third bullet on the bottom list. Be willing to keep working until the work is finished. So maybe we just need to move that up.
Yeah, should we move that one up?
And just be like, until, or we could even just say be willing to keep working until there's an implementation plan in place. I mean, I'm weary of saying, let's not choose interests that we don't know we can solve, because some of those we don't know if we can solve, and we still should try, and we're not gonna know today whether there's possible, like, that's what the work is, right? So I think that that would limit us too much in like our dreams, right? But I do think that we could put something in about implementation, if people were willing to agree to that. I think one other thing that is popping up in my mind is sort of connected to that, and relates to the healthcare thing. Is that, like, if we make agreements in the group, that those agreements are not changed without consulting the group, and I feel like that could be a norm.
yeah.
About the implementation that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's one aspect. I think the other though was like Stephanie, right? We were in a group, a subcommittee
And
where,
I think part of it too was we kept getting told, so we were told we could do the work, and then we got into the subcommittee, we were told we weren't allowed to actually try anything, we kept bringing up. So I think there needs to be a conversation too about if we agree that this is going forward, if we agree that we're all working on this, what, I don't wanna say power, but I can't think of another word, what power do we have to actually do it? Because we spent 6 months for the past 3 years on teacher burden. And every time we try to get somewhere, you get told, oh, no, you can't really do that, or, oh, that should go to calendar, then you meet with calendar, oh, no, that's not in calendar. And so it keeps getting pushed around, and we keep hearing from the teachers, and it feels like a failure to keep going back and saying, we still haven't gotten anything for 3 years of the same topic. So the implementation is, where do we hold the expertise, power, whatever, however you want to say it, actually move forward with something and try something and come up with a plan that we're all gonna agree to give it a go. And how do we switch course at some point and maybe say, oh, Anna's not on this subcommittee, but we're gonna start pulling her in because we need approval, or we don't have a board member, we need approval to know that we can go forward before we come back to the whole group. So those kind of, that's what's stopping a lot of implementation is that, oh, no, you actually can't do these thoughts. Oh, no, we're gonna stop right here. So those kind of implementation issues as well.
Rob?
I know we're talking about volunteers, but I feel like we're kind of getting into one of our interests.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Yeah, I don't want to eat up a bunch more time.
I'm sorry to open up a.
But I think that could be one thing to think about today is to have some group of people make a committee that might be process oriented. Or to say that this is something to do based on what happens with the master agreement. Because master agreement language may have a lot of this stuff in it already, and where's that going to go? Okay.
It seems like there's a smaller time frame issue and a bigger time frame issue. Be willing to keep working until the work is finished on that day, but then the implementation is a different. Don't stop until it's done issue.
Right, that's a larger process
Yeah.
thing rather than the daily thing. But Rob, I think, was talking about that in terms of a lot of times you're really working hard. You can't necessarily just stop at 4 o'clock on the day, and there have been past where time has gone on to make sure you finish what you were doing that day. And we did that last time by committing to this meeting here to keep the work going, so. Yes, Heather.
So I'm just wondering, from what you're saying, Lisa, when Adam was talking, you did use the word implementation. Be willing to keep working until the work is implemented. So it almost feels like that implementation should also be moved up, like this norm, be willing to keep working until the work is finished. Is like on that day, what you just said, but then an additional piece. That's where I felt like we kind of got into the stickiness of the healthcare thing that was like in the 10th hour at the last meeting, and we just like pushed it through without feeling like we had a full implementation understanding. So I'm just wondering if implementation needs to be higher up on the list.
I will say, since this group is an IBB group, that is the last step of the IBB process.
Okay.
So it is something that is officially part of the IBB process, is that implementation. And it is often the hardest thing to do, especially if you've made, everybody's given thumbs at the end. You've got this tentative agreement laid out of what you're gonna do, and then everybody goes home. And that can be hard, and that oftentimes falls to leadership as to write up all those specific things. But it sounds like there is an interest to make sure that there is a model of how implementation is going to happen. It never does any good to negotiate without the power in the room to implement the negotiation. That doesn't get you anywhere. So if you spend a lot of time negotiating with your car salesman and then they've got to actually go talk to the manager who then has to talk to somebody else, it gets hard to make things go.
And if we had had that really clearly defined last year, then when the CBT clinic thing came up, we would have been aware of it as this committee ahead of time. We could have gotten in front of the fallout from that not happening.
Does it seem reasonable to have a committee that's related to process rather than having everyone talk about process today? Or
Well, this is what I'm saying. Do we want to jump into interests right now? Because this is one of our interests is defining the scope of IB.
okay, great.
Sounds good.
So we'll wait.
I just have a clarifying question because I'm not certain if a master agreement is the same as a master contract. If there's, they're just a quick, okay. That's all I wanted to.
Yeah, those are just two
I
different,
just
two
wanted
different ways to
clarify,
say
because
it.
I heard both of them and I didn't know if that was something different.
Here's something else to throw in, we don't wanna call it a master anything because of racial.
Oh, yeah.
things. So we wanna call it a collective bargaining agreement.
Collaborative.
Or collaborative bargaining agreement, CBA, so that's the same thing.
Thank you. Wanted to clarify. That was.
That makes it a lot easier. Okay, so can we just agree on the norms that we have here? Okay, thumbs on that? All right, excellent. Okay, thank you very much. So now we are ready to move on to Nathan's presentation. And I'm assuming you probably need your computer to be.
I actually don't have a presentation. I just linked the fair share document and the current year calculation in the notes.
So what do I need to bring up here?
So on the agenda you sent to us,
Uh-huh.
well, I don't know if it's.
It's in the
Folder.
notes too. Yeah, in the folder. Yeah.
I've really told myself, we need to figure out this computer before you get in front of people, and then I haven't done it, so. So you want me to click on that link there and?
Maybe, when we have our break.
Yeah.
Tech people can. Work with you with it.
Yes, I'll get my computer set up properly.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just saying maybe people who feel good with your type of computer could.
Yes, I would
give you a
love that.
Quick tutorial.
That would make me very happy. So you guys can find this same thing. And what's the question about this?
We want to review the actual wording for the calculation. I think both are helpful. So let's go over both. So I'll give everybody maybe 7 minutes to read this. Mark down some questions. This is kind of it's a legacy agreement. It's been around for
It's been around for at least 23 years.
okay.
In this district or in
It
the
was,
state of
it
Colorado?
was, no, in our district, it was what was put out when we used to have, we used to have a different bargaining process that was not interest-based bargaining. And, there was, Shannon always told the story that, you know, we came to this point where, both sides had something that they wanted and they weren't budging, and that's, there had been some mistakes made by the, finance team before that, that had put us in the red. And so there were a lot of financial issues, and that's when interest-based bargaining was brought in. And I've been in the district 23 years, and I believe interest-based bargaining is like at least a year or two older than that. So this may be like 25 years or so old. But in my understanding, this has not changed. Maybe wrong, that percentage actually, I seem to remember the percentage being a little higher, like it was 68%, I thought at one point, so. But I may not be remembering that correctly.
Do you know, Nathan, if that number since you've been in your position has changed?
No.
Okay,
I'm thinking about like a long time.
okay.
And that's based on certified future SSP coaches. That's who's kind of job represented by this, like their percentage of like total general expenditures. So at one point it may have been 68%, but as other things have been added, maybe I calculated it for last year, it's like 57, 58. Number that changes.
Then the rest of the other 31% goes where? Okay.
What, some questions we get from staff are, who is, you know, who gets that 61%? Is it just teachers? Is it Is it all certified? Does it go to benefits? Does it go to salaries? Does it go to, like, what else does it go to? And then, is that, like, how does that number change if it does change? What is the mechanism for that number changing?
So some of those I have answers for and some I don't. Again, the percentage to me is, it was kind of what I inherited. That's this document that the only copy of this I could really find. All the shortcuts seem to look back to this one. So it's just 61% that's got that. Again, it's meant to represent the general fund only. Certified teacher, SSP, athletic coach, salaries and benefits as a percent of total general fund expense. So it doesn't include licensed principals, licensed assistant principals, instructional facilitators. That all comes from 39%. Is where their salaries and benefits increases.
Can you say that again? Who is it?
The people represented by the increased bargaining are certified teachers, SSPs, and athletic coaches. Substitute certified.
Based on what you two have been saying, it would help me understand a little better. What does fair share agreement protect us from?
Basically allocates in this case, there's a fixed negotiable component. A fixed component says if our per people revenue goes up, this is the percentage that is allocated to this group to manage certified teacher salary and benefits, whatever manner they choose.
Okay, so without this agreement, if the per pupil went way up and for some odd reason that we didn't have this number 61, it could go towards the admin hot tub fund instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a preventative measure for keeping us from getting top heavy.
Yeah, okay.
And I think an important thing to say about it is that the agreement says it's a minimum of 61. And I think the spirit of that is that it's like, and that the spirit of that, since I've been a part of this group, is that we want that number to be as high as possible. But it can't go below 61. So I just thought I'd throw that in.
Nathan, clarification there.
So 61% is again historically based on what this group's percentage of total salaries and benefits are. So if you say, well, we want that to be 75%, you only represent 60% of the costs. How are you paying for increase in heating bills? How are you paying for janitor increases and food service? Like there's other people that need access to that money too.
Oh, totally.
And so when you say like we need more of that, like that really like it bothers me because then we're shortchanging the.
Well, and yeah, okay, I can clarify, because I'm not saying we need more. I'm just saying that that's the minimum number. And that I think the spirit of that number is that we're putting as much money into the humans that are on the ground facing kids as possible. And trying to cut corners on heating bills, and so, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that like, I'm just saying that that's the word. It says that it's a minimum percentage. It doesn't say it's an exact percentage.
I'm saying the other knock-on effects are, we'll say we don't have money for HVAC.
Yeah, no, I know,
Because
yeah,
we're,
and transportation. No, I think everyone here has realized that like that other 39% is a very important bucket. But that is the language.
And if you did throw in everybody else, salary and benefits district-wide, it's like 80-something%. Yeah.
like 85 is typically the trend. And one of the reasons that this is based on per pupil operating revenue is that generally has gone up by inflation. So we're trying to beat inflation.
Clarifying question. 61% is teacher bought, for lack of a better term. Then the other 39%, is that just salaries, or does that also include all these other costs that you're talking about? Curriculum, facilities, okay.
Yeah.
Do you, I just out of curiosity, do you know the salary breakdown for admin staff, and other staff?
Like the percentage of.
Okay. I just been curious to.
Wouldn't that be like 25 then if you said it's like 85% or so?
Yeah,
24%.
I mean,
Roughly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Clarifying question, you said that percentage sometimes fluctuates, how does that fluctuate? what causes it to change, that 1% to change?
Just the overall distribution of this group salaries and rate of the other ones that are spent. I mean, I inherited 61%. It's never been 61% since I've been here. I'll say historically, talking to Shannon, who's my predecessor, fair share was not basically from the Great Recession until last year. We never raised fair share. We looked at it and said, hey, this is great, but we've got to start funding curriculum again, like all these other things like the press. So this really hasn't been, it's been around, but it hasn't been followed for. So my understanding is over there.
Okay, Miles and Rob.
I think there's concern from the association as well, when the district runs out of money, so then they start finding ways to fund what would be considered the administrative positions out of our fair share.
That's as it happens. So
What are all the jobs you guys are talking about adding right now with what's the
so that's the negotiable component of the bottom. That is not coming out of your fair share.
all these new building positions, the dean or what is it called?
Dean and culture.
Dean of culture, all those are administrative jobs. It's the way we see those. And you guys are funding those out of our fair share.
We're not using that 61% to pay for the positions. They are being funded by the negotiable components. We have an increase in interest rates that can pay for.
That's the understanding that that's coming out of the future.
And the certified salaries, so raises in the future would be half that.
So you are funding those positions.
The raises, yes, not
From the
not the
fair
initial.
share, you're funding administrative positions from the teacher's fair share.
So I would view those as certified. We can discuss that at the end. I would probably Stacy here, but those are student facing certified positions.
I'm just gonna say that continues to be a thorn for the association. You guys need to be aware of that.
I would say this is sounding like a negotiation to me over an interest. I mean, this is something that should probably fit under the compensation folks rather than negotiating it out. So it sounds like we're in a negotiation and you've got some debate going on, and that is a part of the process. Rob, what do you have?
Oh, I just wanted to correct Adam and say that we do need one. And we understand that other things come from that other 39%, but I'm not gonna pretend like teachers get paid as well as they should.
I would suggest that we've got an idea about what this particular fair share agreement is, but it definitely sounds like something that needs to be negotiated or looked at by the compensation group. And compensation is going to happen. That's going to be something this group is going to discuss. So I would suggest rather than just going over it now, that we put that into that committee work. And then this may become a part of the negotiation process when we negotiate compensation.
I forgot, what was the impetus for like going over this and at this part of the meeting?
It was asked to be brought up and put on the agenda.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
it's just part of, because we're meeting tomorrow about the
Oh, yeah.
CBA, and it was something that we said should probably be discussed as
Yeah.
part of our group, so we wanted to have.
Okay, cool.
So then and I like what you said, Rusty, about let's move this into a subgroup. I agree that it is sort of getting into some negotiating here, but then my question from that would be, how does that work marry with the work that the CBA group is doing? Because that group is not everybody in this room. Although, at least from the teacher side, anybody else who wants to be involved in that is welcome to be involved in it. Sure, I don't know about the administrative, I'm gonna speak for you guys, but and also we have two members on that group currently who are not in IBB, so I think that's an important consideration we should think of.
Well, and maybe, just to throw this out there,
Hold on.
yeah, but
Autumn and then Kitty.
I just want a quick clarifying question. Nathan, when you're saying it hasn't been, you haven't been at 61, we've been under 61, we've been over 61. It's been under, so we've been less than 61%. Okay. Thank you.
I pretty much had the same question as Autumn. Do we have a percentage of what it has been, or do we know why it has been under, that is the fair share agreement?
It's been around 50%.
Adam?
Well, I just would throw it out there, like, I think, part of the trouble is that you are balancing the books and you have all these numbers in your head, and we don't, and so, that's stressful, and there was a meeting, I remember, I don't know if this happens like every few years, but like in the pre-COVID, like I remember that meeting where Shannon Collin went through the entire district budget line by line. It was painful, but super informative, because then we can all see like what what all those line items are, and like, because that was when we were trying to cut costs, when we were like, can we put off getting new tires for the buses until, it was like, it got really tight. And so I think that just like a process like that, it might be getting time for that, because for us to all revisit it and just see what it is, because that helps everybody understand like why it's coming out at 58 or whatever.
I would encourage as a process thing is whoever's in that compensation committee, that compensation committee be a part of a financial presentation so that they understand what the dollars are, how they're being distributed, what is available to work with, and they can begin to frame questions about certain things. And then when negotiation happens, that can actually be brought to the whole group. But it makes it a lot easier if all those financial things can be worked out so that there's an agreement, at least in the committee, to the numbers. And then those numbers can be shared, and then everything's laid out. Okay. Remember also that all of the numbers that operate for the district are on the CEA website. So anybody at any time can go and look at every single aspect of what's laid out in the CEA for that budget and for the association. And also it's nice sometimes to have a CEA financial person come and make a presentation to that committee also, or just to work with the Education Association folks to help create balance and understanding of that. Lisa, you had a
CEA, not CDE.
I'm apologizing there, CDE.
Okay.
Thank you.
CDE.
CDE, not CDA, CDE. Got myself mixed up. Well, so we don't have the acronyms. But yes, on the CDE, you can see other districts, you can see yourself. It's all laid out there. Does that seem like a reasonable thing, Nathan, to have a presentation to the compensation committee to discuss those financial things, questions they might have? There are ways to go look at previous year's budget and so forth. If you are negotiating off of last year's money or what's going on with this school year, then there's been a lot of actual, here's what the proposed was, here's what the actual was, that's going on at this time that can be looked at by groups. That's just up to you guys to decide. Each group that's working, each committee that works needs to really dial in. What resources do we need to help us get the information that's going to help us best meet the interests of everyone? And so that requires admin folks to be able to share. If there's some sort of a lead policy or something else that's going on, then obviously there's going to be information from HR that's necessary there. So there's got to be that sharing, and that's something the committees will need to work on today to start to figure out what other resources do we need to be able to get all the best mutual understanding for the team and for this group. Are we okay to sit on this and have this be something that goes into the compensation committee? I think if we just keep going, it's not really gonna get us anywhere. Thank you, Nathan, for sharing. Everybody knows where this document is. Okay, the other thing that's on the agenda was a calendar. Presentation that the calendar,
Well, calendar can help me. We've met twice now. The first time we met, we tried to get that survey out that may not have worked as well as we hoped. We met the second time to kind of discuss the calendar survey, issues with it, obviously, and next steps. And we're just feeling like at this moment, with the time constraints we're under, to try to really do anything for the 24-25 year in terms of major changes would be wrong and maybe done in haste and cause more issues. So at this moment, we are thinking about keeping the 24-25 very similar to this year. Continuing with the calendar committee, creating a different survey, more depth, more data points to really look at revamping, changing whatever calendars, starting in the 25-26 year, but giving us this year of really doing this and pretty much it in a month or two, because the district is really feeling like they've got to get it to the board between January and February. That's kind of where we're standing. Stacey's not here, but she went over the 23-24 calendar and found some errors in it in terms of contact days. And so we're supposed to meet January 11th and kind of go back over those kind of things, see what she this year.
24-25 calendar.
Yes,
though.
well,
Errors.
she found errors in this year's calendar that would be applied forward, I thought she said too, but there's errors somewhere.
I was understanding it was for the draft of next year's calendar.
So there's some errors we need to figure out before we can bring the calendar forward, so we'll meet January 11th, but that's basically where we're at is the idea is that next year's calendar is very similar to this one, and then the future calendars might have some changes in it. It would also give the IBB team some time, since we hear things like ERWs, to present those to the calendar committee before a new kind of calendar is created.
There was also the thought that right now we're sort of like off year with other districts of when we're making our calendar. And so right now, other districts already have given their 24-25 calendar, and it's been a big ask by people we've talked to that there's calendars are aligned across districts. And so by going with one that we've sort of put forward to this point of for next year would be similar to what we've done now, so it could match the other calendars, and this would give us the option of being able to move forward and sort of, instead of having to follow, be able to set the pace for the next year as we're doing our next calendar.
And I can just do an update from meeting with the RE2 16 and Aspen superintendents is that they, it's pretty interesting, right, from the survey, like even portion of our constituents care about RE2 or Aspen. It's pretty split evenly. I would say Aspen cares about us, RE2 cares about 16 cares about RE2. Like it's not, they're not all, I think we're right in the middle. I think we're feeling that right in the middle space. What was most important to those superintendents is that we were aligned on winter break, spring break, and Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's pretty easy. Those other two kind of moved. And as I know calendar committees looked at for our draft 24-25, and those districts draft 24-25, because they're like all over the board on the process. 16 just makes up their own, they have no committee. Aspen does a committee every 2 years. 16 does, or RE2 does more of a committee process, but they're not all on the same cadence. I don't know that we'll be able to move those 4 districts to get on the same cadence or us figure that out. So I don't know, I don't think that might not be a fight worth fighting, is trying to get 4 districts to have the same process and timing. And I don't know that it's even that clear. But I will just say that those were the priorities for the districts. They didn't really even care about start dates and dates. Those were the, I think, priorities for them. Similar strategy, we are going to have a more consistent meeting with that team so that there will be, I think what we named was like everybody's kind of all over the board when they're working on calendar, but at least if the superintendents were meeting monthly, we could be sharing where we're at in that process and sharing with our team, so people know what folks are thinking, and if some significant change is coming up, we'll be alerted to it. It's just a short update.
I think I just wanted to add that is this thought process something that we can share with our constituents, because this feels like, thank you for putting the brakes on. People have really been worried.
This was something that came up, we wanna make sure that our communication is in line with the IBB communication, to make sure that we're all sharing the thing.
Okay.
So that was something that we wanted to talk to you all about today, is how do we share this information? We wanna do it the best way possible, that's not stepping on anyone's toes.
So maybe when we do our update from what our communication, that will be a part of it.
Yeah, that's our hope.
Can you help me understand? The final approval per statute is if the board approves the calendar. And that we have a calendar committee that I understand operates and has to operate. Given timing, not tied to IBB, like, you know, if we're not finalizing our work until May. We haven't finished the calendar, like that's a real disservice to our community. So my understanding is that IBB acts as a representative and consultatory group for the calendar, but then the calendar committee is not held behind IBB processes. Could you tell, is that right?
I think there's a yes and a no. I think, as we found in some different issues that have come up before, if it was presented to IBB and people in this group gave it a thumbs down, the board could still continue with it. But it would be stated to RFSD that this was done by the board, that our IBB did not agree to it. So it's again, that like trust level and communication level and buy-in from teachers and those kind of things. We don't have to stay within the time frame of IBB, which is why the calendar committee talked about, we're just continuing on, like, we're not stopping when IBB stops in March or April or May, we're gonna just keep on chugging. So that we have the time we really feel is necessary, kind of like with the strategic plan. If we try to cram this in a month and a half, we're gonna do something that is probably harmful, not helpful. We also wanted to look at where the strategic plan lands as well, because why would we create a calendar now? And then the strategic plan, and then say, oh, we just created a 3-year calendar that doesn't align with the strategic plan as well. So yeah, does that?
Yeah, it does. So what I'm hearing from you is that ideally, as calendar committee is working on their time frame, which is ideally to give people plenty of time to know what's coming, there would be a moment where calendar committee comes to this group, checks in, here's where we are, and what we're looking for is a consensus or support or non, you know, whatever it is, some sort of clarity on where the IBB team stands in reference to the calendar, and the calendar committee then takes that input, keeps rolling. Is that right?
We want the 24, 25, hopefully done sooner than later.
Totally.
I think initially when we left our last meeting, we kind of thought we were presenting it today, but then maybe we got the errors and we didn't have time to meet. I think in a situation like this where it's so crucial to get that so fast, this would be one of the things we can send out via email to the IBB team and consensus it via email, though that's not something we often like to do. But then that 25 and on calendar, we don't plan on trying to come back to IBB with anything until next fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe as we have time to work in groups today, maybe we could have a 10-minute time at the end of this thing to present where we're at right now and see how IBB is feeling about that for next year's calendar. With the idea that it's going to be very similar to this year's calendar, and just see if we can get our thumbs up from the IBB committee to say that sounds like a way to move forward, so that we at least have this backing to say yes.
Okay, Megan?
Two things. First of all, I think somebody said this earlier, maybe Anna, you said this at the other meeting, that I think it would save us some brain drain if we are able to ever create a calendar that lasts more than 2 years. So just like thinking about that in the future. And then also just historically, Anna, you were talking about like who is the decision maker. So I'm sorry, I'm always like providing the historical.
No, that's great. That's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
Great.
But at one time, SAC, at least in my time here, SAC was the one that determined the calendar. And then it was happening that SAC kept running into things that were financial, making financial ramifications, and they don't have that without the IBB process. And so calendar was moved to IBB. And then IBB was the one that was making all the decisions. We were the be all end all of it. And then we had 1 year when we had X Games come. And a decision we had made on the calendar was changed by a board member. That because they wanted to have a day off, I believe it was. For the X Games, I believe that's what it was.
Inhale.
And so. At that point, we decided that IBB would become an advisory group and that the board has, well, the board has always had the ultimate, but up until that point, the board always did what IBB wanted to, and at that point, it became, okay, the board is making the final decision and they're taking into consideration things we're saying, but also things that that might be heard from parents and other constituents. And so, since then, we have been making our recommendations based on our very best research and information, but we know that we're not making the final decision in IBB. And we are people, and an organization is made up of people, and we can do what we want. So if we decided we wanted to take back that, or we wanted to give it to someone else, like, we can make that decision. We don't have to be like beholden to like, this is the way we have to do it. There's not like a statute that says that.
And I'm sorry, there's lots to figure out here. And am I correct that like coordination, facilitation of that has typically been held by that chief of staff role? Public information officer?
No.
Like,
Like, that's very, very new in the process. Like, I think maybe last year might have been the first. Yeah.
No, it was always superintendent.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because like I said, there's financial implications and there's legality implications in terms of contact and those kind of things that they don't always have the information. So no, that was a very recent.
Thank you, Kenny.
And I'd like to just share one more thing, which is probably known by everybody anyways, but the survey information that we get back from the survey on the calendar is very inconclusive.
Yeah.
Like, it is the thing I've seen that's probably the most wide span. Like, we should start earlier, just as many people say we should start later, we should end earlier, it's the same people that end later, but it's not like even 50-50, it's like 30, 40, 20, and 10. Like, there's very little conclusive information that you get from the survey about this is the way it should be done. So it really is a decision that is gonna not make people happy.
I think in the previous surveys prior to the past couple cycles, we've had more in-depth surveys that started with the what. So like, if we start earlier, this happens. If we start later, this happens. And these are like the fallouts from it. And when we had some more in-depth with the why and the fallout, our surveys were way more conclusive. I think we send out surveys that are very gray and muddy, not just this past time, but in previous couple cycles. And I think it's part of the reason we're getting inconclusive results back.
I agree, and I'll just add that that's one of the biggest things I've heard is that they didn't have time to do the survey or they didn't understand the survey. So it would be great to redo the survey as you hope to do it, sounds like.
All right, thank you for all the information around calendar. Let's take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back to the topics and interests. Now I'll get my computer over here.
What do you have?
equity of teacher workload. It looks like we got story down, about everything. We run some interest on that. Next.
It's still lots of interests to break up.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. So
Yeah, we do, we definitely do.
this was something that admin brought, Lindsay had presented it to us. We've been running story, and so we need to run through interest now related to this idea. And it's basically laid out here at the interest focus. What are the teacher-student ratio, right sizing the workload, planning time, and then we have story built in around all that. Take a moment, just kind of look over those things.
They're in our notes too, right?
Yes, this is from the document of the meeting notes. From last time and then today. We would actually, we could just add on to this particular layout story and go right underneath it. Just so that was today. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to story? Lindsay, you had something you wanted
Well, I
to say?
just, like, when I was thinking about this more, because I presented this, like, I felt like what the team did last year with stipends has been a huge step towards this. Right, recognizing when people are taking on additional curriculum work or taking on. Like, that flexibility of the stipends has been really helpful. For people leading teams or other things, and this is. I did want to get like, I did want to be really clear that it's not about like, the idea that some areas are harder to teach than other areas, but like, at what point is it fair or unfair to ask a teacher to take on? And it might be very secondary specific, but like to take on another plan or to go over a certain ratio. You know, I have classes that are both 12 students in a class and 34 students in a class. And I don't know always if like, is there a line within that that's fair to ask teachers, or like a point where that's too many? You now have over 200 students, that's too many. You have, you know, but between 125 and 175 is an appropriate workload for a high school, staffing wise, so that's kind of where I am. And then if for some reason you were above that, there would be like an additional stipend because you just took on. It's very, very clear when we ask people to go above a 1.0 FTE, but it's not there when it's within the normal number of classes, but they might have significantly more cuts or significantly more students. And I don't know what those lines are, and it's come from teachers asking me. Okay, I might not pay more, I teach way more kids than other people.
Yes.
Just wondering, going off of that, Lindsay, too, in addition to the amount of students, the amount of IDPs the teacher might be in charge of as well. That's a whole nother workload. That's a whole lot of work for us as teachers, for ELP teachers and for.
And we did that last year, so like I was short one special education teacher. And so the teachers divided the caseloads between them and then we increased their FTE. So we went above a 1.0 across for those teachers at the ratio that they were taking on the caseload of the others.
And it felt like it, in the story around this, it was brought up that there are unfilled positions still. So there's a lot of dynamics that can affect implementation of specific components based on site-based things that are happening. Kenny.
What you're saying is, it just makes me wonder if we increase an FTE to beyond 1.0, is there gonna be teachers wanting to be that teacher? To be able to increase their salary, and is there going to be any thought of how proficient they are in it, and if it's going to overwhelm them, and are they going to be able to be doing the job to a level that we hope the teacher is doing them to get that extra FTE?
And those would be important evaluation things we get into choosing an aspect of this to work on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, can you answer yes? I know there have been teachers near retirement who have.
And do you think that's as a detriment? Or because they're those teachers and they're more equipped?
I think that's a case
Well, this is, that's, oh, sorry.
I think the other place where we see this dynamic is with special service providers. Increasing, having, taking on, absorbing a position when we're short a school psychologist. Then, and does that just become a new job description? Or, where's they need to be, I think it's the reason that we lost somebody last year because they weren't offered compensation for absorption of mental health caseload.
I just think it's a slippery slope. I think, like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't take it on, but, it was mentioned last time, and I'll just bring it up again, that it's scary when we start comparing our suffering, and, mine is worse than yours, and, because it also, it changes every year, right? Like, how hard your particular position is. And I think there are some valid things. I think some of those things might fall under our second interest up there. But it's tricky, because it's really hard for everyone. And I think, the extra FTE thing is also really interesting because cannot be more than one person, no matter how good you are, and then you start getting into like work-life balance and is this sustainable? And I've seen some of those examples where now you're like pushing people closer to burnout because they have a job of 1.5 people, it's so I guess the question I'm asking is that is this our wheelhouse, like, or is that like are you kind of asking professional advice as an administrator? Is that something that is BLT, like we provided these stipends? Some of the stipend money was like, yeah, if you have overnight, there were certain things that had to be paid out. There was also some flexibility in that, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot more questions than answers, and I'm just wondering if this is an IBB thing or a BLT thing, or yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes,
Lisa
Lisa.
was next.
Yeah, I was thinking.
I just wanted to add, that Spanish speaking teachers bring a lot, to the table in terms of assets, and we do have the translation line, which works to varying degrees, but, to be able to talk to a student's parents in their language, is a definite, benefit, and, that doesn't seem to be recognized, when it is something that people have worked toward over many years.
I was just kind of gonna question the group because I don't know, I know it's a pretty new group, but I was just wondering if this was more the admin IBB type of question. I don't know, like as far as wheelhouse or whatever, because it does seem like it's kind of like guiding decisions that admin would make, right? And so I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know what the role of that admin IBB is because it's pretty new, but just wondering.
Okay, thank you, Brand.
Echoing and I walked away thinking last time, and maybe this isn't the format for BLT, but comparing sufferings felt like a bad way to go about our work. And maybe, but But that's part of, we're alleviating, that's part of what we're addressing here is alleviating suffering, so maybe we should just address it for what it is, but. I like, the idea of recognizing. When somebody brings a skill, like being able to be bilingual. Can we quantify or codify, maybe not suffering, but when you do bring an extra skill to the table. I agree with Adam, the comparing suffering is a very slippery slope. And that could get tricky, but could we in a objective way, look at, you've gone through training, you have passed a test like the translators have. And that could be a way of addressing some of this. And I don't know if there's a way to do, you've shown that you can, you've got taken extra training to do a higher, bigger classes. I don't know. I'm just throwing out an idea.
So Stephanie, then Anna.
Two things. One, Alicia, I like the idea of the admin IBB. It would put in a lot in their plate in terms of deciding how our 61% of fair share gets used. If they decide to do different things, so we have to just put that in the room and know that we're cool with that. And then second of all, I wonder if we're moving into solutions and we haven't even decided if we're taking on this interest yet. So I was just wondering if we should move on.
Thank you. So we got into options last time too. I do think that it felt like Lindsay was saying, are there components in this idea of equity that could be isolated to work on rather than the entire thing? And that would be something that specifically might come about from the collaborative bargaining agreement. There oftentimes can be language that relates to a particular work aspect there. Okay, Anna?
I would only say that sometimes we see admin trying to utilize the flexibility of stipends or names of roles to adjust compensation within their school that then create challenges when maybe that employee thinks they're taking the same job at a different school. That administrator doesn't classify it that way. And so I do think that I feel an obligation to be super clear. And I think again, the stipends really helped with where the wiggle room is for admin on those pieces. And I think that yes, admin IBB is gonna have an important lens on that, but I think to the way Lindsay framed that question, are there, and blending a couple of people's ideas, are there objective ways to look at equity? With a lot of these things we've raised, class size, number of preps in secondary, language skills. I mean, I hear it from our schools with 80%, 70-80% free introduced lunch, that like the complexities of serving kids with additional needs that come from poverty is a very different challenge than schools that have 40% FRL. And we see that in DPS, right? They do that. And I don't know if that's right for us, but I don't know who else could grapple with these questions than a working group from this team. And not that I think that back to maybe Adam, your piece, like, I don't know if we can solve it, but can we think about it? And are there pieces that are worth chewing on in the interest of really making sure, I think this is an important question that Rob, you spoke to a little bit, that kids are in environments with the healthy staff who want to be there and want to be working at the level they're working at, and have the skills and tools to support those kids.
So process questions, should we continue and do interest around this, or should we look at any particular components that we want to isolate to look at interest? I just want to be effective with our time. It seems like there's been a lot of roadblocks of people trying to build options to get around those roadblocks. Is there some way to put this in another committee setting or another group setting to deal with it?
I think we need to share all of our interests. So
Great.
break this down and what we're gonna take on and what we're not.
Great. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we're good with that. So Is there anything else to add in story? All right, so now we'll share interests around these story components that relate to workload equity, some of these building level challenges that have been shared. Remember, we're trying to say, what is the motivation behind wanting to deal with this rather than trying to provide an option. So I have an interest in, you're not trying to provide options. And Nina, you have an inquisitive face that's not sure about something, so.
I got
please.
lost where we are. Are we introducing a new?
No, so the concept, according to what Rob felt and others agreed, was that we've just done the story for this particular component.
I was saying you're
Let's
ready.
move on. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just completely misunderstood that. This term of interest is messing with me. I don't, because an interest is something related to a particular topic in IBB, and this has been the language, so move on to another topic.
Yes.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
clarity. Her eyes were spinning, and it's not what's wrong with what I said. I'll get more
It's
comfortable.
non-verbal communication.
Yeah.
All right, so,
So we end with story. And then we move on to the next.
okay, so we're only sharing story around a topic / interest.
Yes.
Yes, all right, so we'll move on to, I believe it would now be the Education Association. And we would pop down to today, or do we want to keep going in sequence where we are? So it's all just.
I think we should go to today.
Okay, so we're going into today, I'll scoot down, there we go. All right, and so I want to present, Rob.
Yeah, we have an interest in valuing teacher time. And the core of those is time on IEPs, time in ERWs, early release Wednesdays, and honoring teacher plan.
Professional development.
ERW professional.
Anything with lunch or no, that was not.
Story.
Is this large enough for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay,
We're good.
sorry, I interrupted.
I just wanted to make sure we're gonna do a circle.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we would do that. So who has story to share around this topic? We'll start with them and then they can say which direction, then we'll go around the group. Remember, you can pass at any time and then come back to it. And then once things start fading, we'll put up cards. And you are welcome to ask clarifying questions at some point in time, but we're not trying to analyze or evaluate or generate options with those types of questions. Right, who would like to begin with story around?
I can.
Okay,
At the elementary level, we have had 5 new curriculums, all heavy teacher prep. And not adequate time to A, prep them, B, really become masterful at one curriculum before another one was introduced. And really not the time inside of our contract to get the work done.
not enough time within the contract to take on initiatives, programs, curriculum. The elementary level.
We're going to just go.
And then she's gonna say which way she wants to go.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna share this story, which is kind of shocking to me because I know I didn't say this. I have been a big proponent of early release Wednesdays for many long time. I feel like it's been really good time. But even my team is getting tired of it. Like even the, I feel like multiple signs have been really positive, really good. We've had really good feedback. In the last couple surveys we've gotten, I think it's just teachers are so overwhelmed that even something that used to be really positive, it's just one more thing and teachers can't handle.
Okay. So grant passed, and then just kind of keep an eye on the typing progress that Megan's making, so we don't rush too fast for her. No, you don't feel pressure for that. We need to work at your pace. All right, Lindsay.
I'm really concerned about teachers having, but teachers being asked to give up planning time when we can't cover with subs with losing guest teacher positions next year. I think it's already a strain and I'm worried it'll increase.
Thank you.
I don't think teachers should give up their planning time to, I'd be very explicit, I don't think teachers should have to cover other classes, if they need their planning time. And that it's really awful when they're counting on it and they find out.
ERWs, in my department, don't feel effective, I think, especially for veteran teachers. It feels like we see the same thing multiple years in a row, and we're asked to, it's more of a training time for the newer teachers. But we also need professional development to keep ourselves fresh and invigorated.
I think that this one, it sort of connects to the resource management, like I'm in a ERW class right now that is specifically for science and social studies teachers, which I don't teach. And that's because there's not really anything happening with English. And sometimes I feel like, I'll just say like the trainer and the training is really good. But it almost feels like at some point we're having meetings because they're scheduled and not because we need them. And it also sometimes feels like we're having meetings because we have people whose job it is to train us, even though we don't, it doesn't feel relevant. So it feels a little extra. And I'm just gonna pop this one thought in here around related to what Lindsay said. I don't know if the long-term sub thing is part of this interest, but I'm worried about us not addressing that soon enough this year, because those people, there are people that are doing that job that are good, and it's going to be scary for them to not know all the way until March if they have another job. Like, you might lose those people. And so I'm just wondering, I'm just throwing it out there to get it on the notes, that is there a way that we can address the long-term sub issue before the end of this project, like as soon as possible, so that those people don't start looking for other jobs, and we lose the people that are good at it.
You mean, the guest.
Building subs.
Building guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, building subs, yeah. That's a prescient, temporarily prescient issue.
All right, I wanted to talk about like the ELT teachers with the IEPs. So by law, we have to go to all these meetings. And the triennials take like an hour and a half. So this is like a lot of time that's being taken away from planning time. And at the end, who gets hurt? You know, it's like the teachers, if they're like planning in the morning or later, and then the kids, because the teachers like all rattled. ERWs and PD. My only like real complaint with that is that we get taught something and then go ahead, learn it on your own, do it on your own. There's never time within the PD. Like, okay, let's teach you for 30 minutes. Now here's your time to process, now plan. It's like, do it on your own. And then if we're trying to like learn all these things, we're not going to do anything right. You know, so there's no time in there. And also differentiated with like what Lisa was talking about. Like at certain places, it's differentiated for teachers that have been there for a while. But now we have teachers that have been in the district 20 plus years. We have brand new people. And in order for someone to differentiate, they're gonna have to spend a lot of time doing that. And I don't know, I don't think it's being done. It's being done well in some areas and not well in other areas.
So for myself as an SSN teacher and other SSN teachers in the district, our job is huge. One of the parts of our job that feels like, this is where I feel like my principal's like, you're like the principal, she has said this, of your own mini school within the school. Because of our
responsibility for managing the paras. That is not done, by the district SPED team. Patrick has made that very clear that onboarding of paras is done at the school level. And, you know, my admin is great, so supportive, but when they don't have, which they will also say, a lot of experience themselves instead, it really does fall to us to completely onboard them, including acting as a liaison often between them and HR. Every aspect of their training, including making sure it's done bilingually for second language paras, which most of mine are. I have to ask somebody to translate, often without being paid for it, and I'm advocating right now for them to be paid. But I have to call the translation line to hold training with my paras. I finally advocated enough and loudly enough that CPI is now offered in Spanish, which was essential. I couldn't have any second language paras responding to crises because they weren't CPI trained. So we just got that up and running, thank goodness, this year. I write their evaluation and hold their evaluation. My administrator supports me with that, but that still falls to me. I write their schedule. So I write a schedule for 14 students and manage caseloads for 14 students and schedules for 5 paras and myself. I communicate with parents of those 14 students. I communicate with teachers of those 14 students. Coordinate with special service providers and teaching paras how to do all of this, progress monitor. It's a lot, but the part that feels like there's room for improvement is just in who onboards the paras. Can SPED team at the district level really help create and coordinate a program so that it's consistent from building to building, and paras are feeling really more valued because their onboarding process is not on the fly, which it feels like that's all.
Going back to ERW, a lot of our teachers have expressed that they need time just to do their job, to collaborate with their team members. We're not given a lot of time just to sit down with our grade level team. We're not given time to sit down with, do,
Vertical.
thank you. We're not given this time to work with our team. And we really need more time to backwards plan, to collect resources, collaborate over curriculum, to talk with our team. And with the breakdown of meetings scheduled during lunch, meetings scheduled during plan time, meetings scheduled after school, meetings scheduled during ERW, we don't have the time to do these essential parts of our job.
On the note or topic of like DRW and PD, I'm in a weird spot because I sometimes know the trainer can give me SPDs, like I give the same one that you're receiving. So, but I think it was all high school, the general sentiment towards like ERWs, all of them are, first one is like district led and the other 3 are building led. So it's determined by like building staff what we're doing. I think a lot of teachers view that time as not being like the highest leverage. A lot of them feel frustrated that there are like more important or more valuable things that can be done during that time.
I think what that looks like are like solutions to what, you know, I'm not gonna like go into the solutions and specifics of what a lot of their thoughts are on what that time could be used for, but I do think that like the view of what currently is happening isn't positive. I think a lot of people are feeling burnt out, kind of like what you were saying, Autumn, like even people who generally have been on board or appreciated that ERW time are no longer feeling that, like I haven't heard a single person in the building at Basalt High School feeling positive or appreciating ERW time. I think it has been voiced. I think PD and ERW can also be separated because we have PD days. And sometimes ERW is not spent on PD. So I think that those two ideas can be separated. The PD side, I think teachers have voice at Basalt High School that they still do want to grow and still do want opportunities to learn, but they feel that ERW isn't an appropriate place or time for that. And so I think, you know, again, solutions of what that could look like. I'm not gonna go into what people have said, but like, I think that the desire for a space still does exist and people have voiced that they do want. And at the same time, there's frustration with like what currently is happening in the ERWs. So I think that nuance between PD and ERW, it's not in our building, like get rid of ERW and all PD. I think it's like a change how we're doing this. We don't like ERW. We still have a desire to like grow as professionals too. That's what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
At Roaring Fork High School, we have the PD that Adam was talking about. And that brings in additional time constraints, not only that we are required to do something as science and social studies teachers that English, for example, doesn't have any. So there's inequities in how that time is being spent, and that feels bad. The other thing that has been brought to my attention with ERW, in particular, the district-wide, is not only do we meet during that time in a different way than other teams have to, we have to give up our plan time to plan observations to show that we are implementing the CLDE like plans that we came up with during that. So we have to give up plan time to debrief our observations. And we have to show like there's higher level like accountability, again, for our group than other groups. We have to show that we're applying that training immediately. Like it's expected within that month that we will be observed and that we will be debriefed about our observations. So it just, the timeline feels really fast. It also feels like it's not respecting teacher time or valuing teacher time, because once a month at least I have to give up part of my plan time to debrief an observation that I didn't ask to have, or PD that I didn't ask to have, that other teachers don't have to do. So that does not feel equitable at all. I also would say it's been brought to my attention that the PD, that option for this time, also feels like we're missing kind of an opportunity for teachers to gain salary credits, because it's happening during salary time. This is during time that we are on the clock. So we can never collect like credits for what we're doing, and that is a way to move up on the salary schedule. You know, which again, I know that goes into solutions a little bit, but it also is a component that people have expressed to me, like, I want this to count towards certification stuff. And it's not, we're not able to offer what teachers have expressed to me. Cause I used to be in a role of the person facilitating district PD, during this time. And then that was another piece that those positions just got eliminated. There was no like communication really about why. It was just like the last meeting of the year, like, we're just getting rid of that position. So there is no teacher input into the district level PD time for certain content areas. But other content areas, that position wasn't eliminated, again, illustrating inequities and kind of pitting teachers against each other. Yeah, I think the ERW question definitely in my building feels like we are filling the time. Like whether it's district level time or it's building level time. And it's just not being leveraged, very similar to what Maddie said. It is not being leveraged in a way that is showing us that they value our time. And then the final thing I'll say, and then I'll stop, is at our high school, we changed our schedule this year and we got rid of instructional time. And it's really frustrating when we go to a meeting that we feel like is just happening to, for lack of a better word, like justify a position or to fill the time when we lost instructional time. And that we as teachers would like to have kids for longer, like especially AP teachers are really suffering right now. They're just not able to get through the curriculum, and that high stakes test is not changing. It is happening whether the kids are ready or not. They didn't get enough classroom time to get through everything, which ups the ante on kids doing it independently. And again, instead of having instructional time, we're having meetings where kids are gone.
Thank you. Yes. Just piggyback a little bit on what you just said. I think if ERWs are burdensome to the teachers, then some kind of change needs to be made. And it seems like often, at least my experience, maybe it's changed now, but I'm guessing it's very similar, is that there'd be extra tasks through the ERW that you wouldn't have even needed to do. And you're having to like, almost like do things that you wouldn't have been doing to meet the needs of what's happening in ERW. So you don't look in a bad position, you don't come in unprepared. And it seems like instead of giving you a solution and helping you, it often can be burdensome. So anything that we can do to make sure that time is not burdensome to teachers.
Yes.
At GSES, there's some teachers who don't have lunch time. Like they don't have a guaranteed lunch. They're always filling in for other teachers' lunch duties or recess duties. And so they often go whole weeks without a chunk of time for lunch, and they're just eating while they're doing those other duties. And so, yeah, a guaranteed lunch time.
Yeah, I'll echo what's been said about some of the equities in ERWs. From department to department, there seems to be a lot of different things going on, especially during that district time. And then what I would also highlight from building to building, there's a lot of different expectations. My building, we changed our schedule a couple years ago. Collaborative time built into our daily schedule. And so now ERW time just feels like more of that. And that is really disruptive to our schedule as well, our block schedule. So if I teach biology on 2 different days, Tuesday I had 74 minutes for biology, and if I want to keep classes in line, on Wednesday I had 50 minutes. So that's difficult. And I know that similar things happen at the elementary level because my wife tells me about it. Yesterday, she thought she had, and it's so Wednesday, it's a shorter day. I don't have 10 more minutes for this lesson. So it's a weird disruption. It seems like a really small thing, but that different schedule on Wednesday is actually kind of a big thing.
And so for clarity, does it affect all levels to where you have inequity of the way the schedule is laid out in time?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, so I think this answers, goes to your question. High schools have red and white days, do the other levels have those?
Yes.
So like elementary school, they have the same classes every day, so they're not trying to keep those.
Right,
day-to-day
because that
schedules.
continuity doesn't mess with them.
But if you forget that you have a shorter period. Like I've said for his wife, if you forget, oh shoot, I thought I had 10 more minutes of math and now I'm not gonna get into this. Otherwise, pass.
Okay, thank you.
Well, yeah, it definitely affects the elementary because like, you know, our lessons are kind of like, for example, we're expected to teach, you know, 60 minutes of a math lesson every day, but we don't have 60 minutes. At least because we're in a dual language school and so we have to, okay, so I mean, we have like shorter periods anyway because of the dual language schedule, but like I don't teach a regular lesson for most of my classes on Wednesday. I mean, it can be useful because you can have time, oh, here's my assessment day. Now I have time to assess at least, or, you know, it's like a catch-up day, but you do lose instructional time. At the elementary, that's my experience at the elementary level and my team's experience. I wanted to say also, it's not only GSES where some teachers don't have lunch. I'm often eating my lunch while I'm doing duty or in the hallway, walking down the hallway, and I get laughed at by other teachers. But yeah, like, you know, I'm allocated a 20-minute lunch period, but I have to take my kids to recess, I have to drop them off, I have to wait for the duty teacher to come back, I have to walk back to my room, and then at the end, I have to walk down to get them, to pick them up, so I've got like maybe 12 minutes for lunch. So that's an issue. And then I wanted to say also that, we do need time allocated. Buildings and teachers do need time to be allocated somewhere for PD or, you know, staff meetings to happen. Like, we can't say that those things can't happen or don't want to happen. I mean, teachers do want to have professional development. Buildings do need to take care of nuts and bolts. So there does need to be time allocated somewhere. And also district level trainings do have to happen, you know, when you have a new curriculum, those things do have, there has to be some kind of time built in for that, or for whatever other things need to be communicated on a district level.
Thank you, Megan.
To the elementary point, Wednesdays are very difficult for ERWs for our littles. It's like having 2 Mondays. Because we have to do such a drastic schedule difference on Wednesdays to make sure their service times are met and those things. So it feels like starting over twice a week with them. So I always wonder the placement of those days. Secondly, at the elementary level, teachers have up to 100 minutes of duties a week between lunch duty and recess duty, before school duty and after school duty. So that's something that comes up often. And to the SPED conversation, because of the SPED shortage, SPED is being forced to put more than one IEP student in the classroom. So classroom teachers then have 2, 3, 4 IEP meetings, making it inequitable amongst a team. And no fault of the SPED team, but it's not, the workload isn't equally shared because we don't have the resources to share the workload in other times.
Thank you.
My school, we lost 100 kids over the past 3 years, and so we had to cut a lot of teachers last year, and so we went from 2 teachers per grade level to 1 teacher per grade level per subject. And so I went from about 60, 65 kids last year to 125 kids this year. My 7th grade has 150 kids this year, and so our class size, I have 5 classes. 3 of them each are at 28, and 2 of them are at 18. For my 7th grade, they're all over 30, and so just that amount of time. We had to cut our classes from 70 minutes to 50 minutes, so we've like doubled or tripled our class load and kind of almost halved our instructional time, and so it's just really stressful. Luckily, our admin has been great of trying to give us some of those ERW times to help support us through that piece. But there's just never enough time, and I think right now, on top of that, it's become a lot. I'm really worried about burnout at my school.
Thank you.
I worked for a long time at the district level planning, PD and stuff. I would also say like, it's like, we really want to have effective PD doing it at the end of a work day. And in a compressed amount of time is not respectful of people actually, like Grace was saying, like learning something, being able to apply something and then have time to think about it. And so if we're spending 6 hours a month at that Wednesday time, I do think there's a question of how could you use the 6 hours that we're allocating in more of a chunked time, where also families could plan on that. It was a big ask of our communities to give up that time. And it does place a burden on the families, and so if we aren't able to use it effectively, I think we need to consider that balance as well. And when we started it, there was a huge pull on especially elementary and middle school administrators and teachers to then plan things for kids to do during that time, and that's kind of worked out culturally into the system, but there's always fallout of how we do those things. And then I am concerned at the secondary level about, which we've tried to change this year, how we use some of our ERW time to get more student contact time. And so I would just reiterate what Rob is saying, like, we're already struggling to do the level of intervention to have enough time to teach the kids, so to not have them for those full days. Feels sometimes like we're working against ourselves. Like we know what that student, more time on task helps students learn more. And then we don't have them there to have them be able to be on task.
For clarity, I know you guys all know, but how many years has ERW been in place?
We
start-
had late start
Mondays.
Yeah, and the reason we went to it was because teachers were complaining at that time that having a full day of PD was too hard. Like you go and you sit in a meeting for a full day and you get burned out by it. And so the way that, I think a lot of it is I think it's the structure. I mean, we need the time, we need it somewhere. But we had, at that time, it was like, I can't sit in an 8-hour training about math, like, I just can't do it, so. Like, I think that what they were really saying is like, okay, give me that PD, but give me some time to implement it and do it wisely so that. We're not like getting to 1 o'clock and going, okay, I'm leaving, I'm done. So. It's hard. No, Matt, it's kind of like calendar, I think. We've been in the system so long that most people only know this system, but there was a time before when we had ID days, not ERWs or not late start Mondays. Late start Mondays were super unpopular.
Not for the kids.
Thank you.
My other understanding of the switch from late start, I was in the classroom, then my other understanding of late start to ERW was that there was an interest in being able to collaborate across schools because we have so many small schools that nobody could go to a collaborative meeting on a Monday morning and still get back to teach. So there was both of those, which is how it originally, like the first Wednesday, everybody would come together. So that created a huge burden.
I want to go back to the disappearance of the content leads that Alicia was talking about. I was in an ERW yesterday and we were trying to make a scope and sequence vertical alignment to prep for the CMAS with the ELA and ELD teachers. And, we were like getting on the CPE website in real time and trying to figure out what fits where. And I just kept thinking, someone else must have done this, somewhere. And I guess that would have been the content lead. So, if stipends are a good tool to use, I hope we could consider bringing those positions back. Because we're all recreating a wheel that, an expert could then hand to us, and then we could work on implementing it in our own school.
No, these are all really good points.
And I would encourage you now, if you're gonna share a story, try to make it be something new and different and not restating things that have already been stated. Try and make it be a specific thing that would give insight that we don't have yet at this time.
Okay, so teacher plan time, I want to talk about outdoor ed. Can I talk about that
Mm-hmm.
with this? So we're expected to plan outdoor ed. And there's like really not that much time for it. There's been stipends allocated for it, but like only if it's in overnight. But we're still like planning like ski trips and whole day trips. And so we're not getting any extra money because of that. But we were still expected to do this.
I just wanted to add that I don't think it's healthy for our school community to label a day of the week as wacky Wednesday. It's just like, it's not good for any of us.
Weird
So,
I would like to question the 2 hours a month as extra duties as a sign, because I fear that's being taken advantage of. I've seen ERWs go 15 minutes over every single week, which adds up to an hour. And then you're also asking teachers to stay for their IEP meetings. That puts you over the 2 hours right off the bat for that month. I fear that all these extra duties as assigned, who's tracking it? Who knows? I would like to seriously question that policy.
I don't know. This is kind of restating something that's been said. Instructional time was at the Salt High School too. I know that was said about Roaring Fork. Yeah, so also Salt. I think this could go in future time. Hasn't really been talked about, but I think it's part of some of the things people have talked about. My role, I'm a coach. I'm not really a teacher. I'm not admin. I do not get paid admin. I get a teacher's salary and teacher's schedule. I get paid the same as every other teacher. I have the same calendar as you all. And there's a big push in our district for coaching. It's on the UIP. It's a part of a lot of goals. People in admin say that they really value coaching. It's really hard because I think hearing all of this, how teachers feel, and me being in this role, which is a small role, but it exists in almost every building in the district, and it's going to with the funding changes that have been happening. Hearing how teacher time doesn't feel like it's being valued. Coaching takes time. It takes a lot of time, especially if you're doing it effectively. We also have coaching happening from admin at the district office level. We have coaching happening from admin in the building. Then you have coaching happening from sometimes mentors for new teachers, like teacher coaching, and then also like from the CLDE department, me as a coach. So some people could be having coaching conversations and observations from 4 or more different staff. And so I think clarity around that, especially considering teacher time, like what is realistic if we're placing these as goals. And if we are creating positions or if we view this as valuable, I would like to see how that balance can exist where we're also continuing to value teacher time. I think coaching is really valuable, obviously in this position. But I think it's really hard, and I often feel like a lot of people I work with don't always see the value in it. And so how can there be more alignment, I guess, with like admin expectations at the district level, if this is like a goal and priority, aligning and also working with the teachers' view of that, where it doesn't feel like things are being forced. Right, the ERWs don't, or PDs don't feel like it's forced and just filling this time. My job is not to give professional development. That's not why my job exists. It's really to like coach and support and do legal things. So I just wonder, in a way, like, I don't know, I think coaching takes up teacher time. And I know it's something we're moving forward with. So I think just like finding that balance could be something talked about if this is picked.
I'll just add a quick one more. This group last year, developed a solution for an interest, to offer additional days in our schedule, for things like, trimesters ending, was one, and then the high school got that day as well. And then we ended up with a PD day that in some ways, it didn't feel like we necessarily need it, but it had to be a part of the schedule change that we made. The reason I bring that up is because I was extremely impressed and happy how our admin used that time. Because we had an additional ask of us kind of district-wide that just came out this year about CPR. They're really pushing that everybody is CPR certified. And it's just kind of been like, yeah, here's the options, do it on this day, it's offered here, do it online on your own time. But our admin team decided to make that day that was kind of like an extra day to utilize it for morning CPR training. And so I just want to say, like, there has been solutions that we have made about this issue, and then if they're thoughtfully planned and implemented, it can kind of alleviate some of these extra asks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, pass.
Yes.
Pass.
I know a lot has been said about ERW already, but I'll be brief about one other thing. Kind of about what Kenny was saying for this first go around. When teachers are trusted at our school to use the time as they see would be the most valuable, then it does feel like a relief for us. Instead of if every week it's a PD, then it feels like it should. And so when the timing, when it's like once a month it's PD and the rest of the time we're trusted as professionals to use it, then that's when the mood has been the best.
Thank you.
The plan time, which came up in a lot of comments on the survey, really frustrating. This group has done a lot of work, really trying to nail down some minimums, a lot of language in our agreements around protected plan time. So it's really frustrating every year to see that a lot of teachers are still not receiving that plan time. We tried to define very clearly. And if you talk to some of those teachers, have this conversation with your administrator, department head, or whoever's sort of creating the schedule, oftentimes the response is, well, no, because I'm afraid that the alternative is worse. I'll have even less planning time. Take away my lunch. And I think that gets to the core of the interest of valuing teacher time. Just needs to be a cultural shift where we honor the agreements. We respect teachers need time to do their job. I think even the ERWs is the same. Another comment on the survey is we spend 45 minutes of our ERW doing crew activity. 15 minutes. Learn this new thing, and then it's like Grace said, there you go, do it, so. I think we need to be more thoughtful. If we're gonna have this time, we need to really be thoughtful about it.
This is you, Stacy.
Yeah.
We've had a number of comments from teachers, who really want to have more choice in PRW. And I was, sorry, somebody talked about the content link stipend before, and we could change the content link stipend or something like that. I just want to say that it was halved 2 years ago. And I'm stupidly still doing it at half the price.
For people who weren't relieved of that.
For people who weren't, yeah, like I'm a content lead and
To Rob's point on the personal plan time, I think we need to look at the language in the policy. I think there are some buildings that are using the phrase an average of 45 minutes a week to their benefit and to the detriment of teachers. 45 minutes. Sorry, 40 minutes a day, thank you.
I was like,
Sorry, because some people are getting 45 minutes on average a week, that's why that came out. Pass.
Clarity. In the process, if Rob, if somebody is coming to you and they don't feel comfortable going to their admin, I'm assuming they go to their building rep.
I think this relates to valuing teacher time with the content leads that I wrote that position years ago. The intent of it was never to plan ERWs, and then it got super sucked up by planning ERWs. The intent of that time was that we're too small of a district to hire 4 separate, like full-time, like we can't have an English facilitator, a science facilitator, like we're just too small, we're not gonna put those district positions in, but that is wrong to be making curriculum decisions, professional development decisions without direct input from an expert in that area. And so there's so I think that also gets at the value of time, not just the like physical time, but the decision-making around what curriculum or what PD or like that we do have kind of trusted experts. The way that I would say it is like the people closest to the work need to be making the decisions. And so that was really the intent of those positions. And so I do think it could come under here of like, how do teachers ensure they have a trusted content expert who's advocating for what, you know, at a district level might be decided around their work in their area.
I'd like to speak to the unique needs of international teachers, especially the ones that are brand new. These are veteran teachers sometimes who are coming from other countries. And I have a new coworker, and she was sitting right next to me in that CMAS meeting about research simulation tasks and literary analysis tasks, and it was just, her effective filter was just, you know, it was down here and they were speaking up here, and yeah, these are professionals, but things like Schoology, Sign Up Genius, Infinite Campus, even Google Docs are just so new. These are valuable human resources that have, in some cases, left their families to live here and teach our students. And I think we need to support their needs so that you know, they are effective in their positions, but also we can cultivate their talents and hopefully retain them.
Go on. So I think we should put cards up now. If you have something additional, we'll just move on the cards. If there's something that hasn't been said.
I would quickly add on to Lisa's point, in Basel, we are seeing an increase of international educators coming. And the needs to be an international educator of visas and all the other paperwork that is going into it becomes a burden that they're taking on as well as their teaching time. And so it is something that we do have to look at exploring of how do we support that going forward so that we are setting them up to be successful in the classroom, because the family and the mood and the cultural shift is one thing, but the requirements that we're asking for in the country be set is also a time process in which we're getting subs, and that's allocating subs, so it's a process of looking at how do we handle that.
Yes, sure.
I guess I want to just add a little piece about the coaching component. I feel like at times, like you said, if the lift for teachers meeting with up to 4 different coaches is really heavy for new teachers. And it concerns me for burnout. So I'll just say that.
Okay. Grant?
Just that, a heads up, I think, with our new MTS process, that that we're required to do observations of the students and to try to combine that with a observation for between admin and teacher, and so I can see how that's an additional, but that's what I think part of that is going to be.
Another thing about the new international teachers, teaching, in the United States, our clientele, has a different, we have different norms in the United States for education than perhaps these teachers have, experienced in their home countries. And I also wanted to say, I don't think this has been said yet, but in these, when we have these unfilled positions like literacy intervention teachers at the elementary, that is being put on the shoulders of the homeroom teachers who are now providing intervention and planning for intervention and out planning independent activities for the kids who are still in their classroom. So that's creating an additional burden, and I think it goes under the teacher time, and maybe it also goes under the admin interest also.
Okay. Yes, Megan.
I've heard of at least one ERW team that requires the teachers who are missing that day to make up their ERW time and another. And not all, I don't know, I think it's only happening in one, but it seems like an unfair or unequitable, maybe is the better word.
Clarification, that could be just they were sick that day or they had a
Yeah.
leave day. What about coaching? Just have to take off on a Wednesday sometime in this.
Athletic coaching?
Yes, sorry, athletic coaching.
Oh,
Sure, you're thinking in my mind it was missing. It's beyond just.
Are you asking if that's?
I just clarification, I can, in my mind, I'm saying somebody who could be sick that day or they had a general leave day for some reason that day. But it also seems like coaches could be gone, having to leave early to go do something and not athletic coaches and not be fully present during that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the presence at the ERW meetings is, I think it's just an interesting question, because like, we've had conversations in the past about like, we don't, like some teachers will say, oh, it's Wednesday, I'm gonna be at ERW, I'm gonna make my appointment that day. Because they're not valuing it.
Right.
And so then I think, I don't know if that was why this one group started saying, well, okay, everybody has to go, but like, you know, if there's a legitimate reason for being gone that day and you really do have, like, why are you being required to make that up on your own time? Like, why isn't there another way of communicating that information, or why is that one content so much more important than the others that's being required? It's just a burden on the people in that.
Yes, Stacy.
Hi, I was trying to catch up on the notes, so thank you, on the taking notes. I think in follow-up, Megan, to what you're sharing, and I'm, you know, this topic of ERWs, I know is one that there's like a range of feelings about it. In one of our strategic planning input sessions, actually, a teacher mentioned that they wished there was more, I remember the words they said. It's really disappointing when I would really appreciate the collaboration time, but there's a lot of folks that are absent. And so it's like that's helpful to know, because I think then it falls into, I don't know if I feel it's very valuable because I think the intended purpose is not necessarily met. And so I say that, Megan, because I'm not saying never make a doctor's appointment or do anything there, but there is an impact in the perception according to few teachers. It's like, hey, I'm making the time, the investment of planning to be here, and it's really demoralizing when I actually don't have the group of people I thought I could collaborate with. And so I have heard from both sides of this really frustrating because I hate this and I think it's a big waste of time. And I've heard from the side that we need to actually have some more accountability of like who's showing up and when, and like folks are planning the time on the monthlies, like people showing up. And I don't have a, or do I think it's the right thing to be like everyone signing and coming, or like I don't necessarily, I don't have the interest in that, but it's really more like the impact. I think it's an important.
No, thank you. All right, Maddie.
Yeah, going up in what you're saying, Stacey, I think there's a feeling of like a big inequity in how those ERWs are dealt with. At my building, I think some people like never ever come, and it's just like, oh yeah, they're never here. It's like, why can that teacher not be here? But then everyone else is here, and it's like some people have formal meetings, but they have to attend, while others are like, you have this time, do what you want. Others have to sit or train. Like I think there's just this inequity that feels like some teachers almost like start getting frustrated and angry with other teachers in the building because they feel like they're being asked different things and it isn't fair. And so you see certain departments being like, oh, well, that department just never comes and they never have to do this, but we always have to, and then they get frustrated and angry. And I think it overlaps with this conflict of people still wanting the time to collaborate and we need a time to have the meetings because we know the meetings will exist, and how that looks and is implemented across the buildings and across content teams within buildings, I think varies so widely that it's made it really challenging. There's just like a lot of negativity around it.
Does that bring up anything else around that concept that might be new that has been shared? Let's see. Cards there, so there we go.
Oh.
Just that folks spend a lot of time planning and try to make quality. And I also acknowledge, I think there's, because I'm going to continuous improvement, that there's always like how to be like, you make it feel really relevant for folks. And I don't know, I think that there's a difference between communicating with the person who's presenting, say like, hey, I'm not able to make it today except really for a doctor's appointment, and just ghosting. And I think a lot more ghosting happens. So like making about people plan for it, or content based or remember, or pictures and things like that. I realize I don't think we have like a set of norms. If we do, I don't know what they are or where they are on like
communicate, and I don't know, if the staff members, like, I'm telling my leader and I thought my leader was one person, or telling one person directly because that's who's gonna know. All I see is, or hear about is like, I expected 12 people and 4 showed up. And I don't know where the other 8 are, and that is what I hear consistently. I'm not gonna email the teachers directly and say like, where were you? Because I don't think that's my job, but I think it's like, I'm just naming that as a thing that is not brand new. It's not sudden. And it is not limited to one content area. It's the team.
Okay, yes.
I will name as one plans. For me, it's a reflection on like, is my PD effective? If a lot of people are continually not showing up, then that means that I'm not planning something that's listening to my teachers and listening to them. And I think, I said this before, like I've been a big fan of the RW, but this year it just has a different vibe. And I think teachers are just so overwhelmed. So I think, how they're being structured, like, yes, we have time and yes, people show up, but if they're not being structured appropriately and we're not meeting the needs of our teachers, then it's not doing what it was planned to do.
Other cards? All right, so now we move on to the next interest topic.
I think it's add.
Yes,
Yeah.
the admin. That topic
Got through ours.
got through your vote.
Yeah.
There was some duplicative, like, I think, that got brought, yeah, sorry, am I correct?
Is there another one from Education Association? Okay, great.
We have an interest in defining the scope of IB. So we know that this is work, but we feel like this group should affected by that, language in that contract. This is not interest. This is something, especially coming out of the pandemic. A lot of reflection on what is IBB, how should IBB be, how does that work get done? With some turnover in the district office, there were a lot of things happening around policy that was surprising to some longtime IBB teachers. So this kind of came up last year as well. Aggressive, but we think it's important. We really nailed down what does IBB do and what do we not do.
Okay, want to start?
I think, we specifically saw this happen when we had our first sort of big transition in the district office with like Nikki and Shannon meeting, and there was sort of just like IBB happened through tradition. There was like these traditions, and so we do, and so we uphold it, but it was never written down 100% formally. And then there was just like, oh wait, this is how we've always done it, but how do the new people know that that's how we've always done it? And so finding a way to really get all of that piece captured and written down, and I think it's really important. And also just echoing what Anna said, like, I knew the schedule beforehand, just with like, I feel like sometimes there's this frenetic energy around like trying to get everything done, because there's this sense of urgency, but like if we had a set time and we knew like this is what we're gonna do, I think that would really help focus the energy group. I'm saying it this.
I think we need to have consistency, and something written down, so that it is predictable. I think that will, if we can do a good job with creating, predictability, it will alleviate some of the distrust in, the process or the people in the process that has developed recently.
Okay.
Maybe that's an option. Maybe my story is more, there has been some distrust developed recently in the process and or the people in the process.
Thank you, Peg. So our story that we're sharing is the who, what, why, where, when, not options, not interest, but really what are the things around this IBB process clarification that would be important so that if this is taken on, there's some guidelines of what to be working on. Miles.
Teachers feel, some teachers in the district feel that there's a lack of transparency in decision-making and direction that the district is making.
I'll talk a little more about some of the policy changes that were surprising to those of us who've been around this process for a while. When the new superintendent was hired, projects was updating, revising policy in coordination with the school board. And the big one that really shocking to us with the grievance policy. Suddenly the HR director making edits in this document that had just gone through the process. What's happened? And then when that was brought up in this room a couple of years ago, it was like, well, that's not the only policy that changed that we feel like teachers should have something to do.
Okay, thank you.
Teachers feel that, decisions made that are large decisions that impact the whole school in a small district should be, they should be hearing, at least before these decisions are made, they should hear from all the staff members of the school more, rather than in a small room by admin. And I'd be more communication from the IBB team too in that regard.
Yes. I have the curiosity to know if IBB is inherently RFCEA and not other teachers, and what role do other teachers have in having a voice heard that are part of RFCEA in decision-making processes. And being that, is it like 50%? That what RFCEA is about?
Approximately, yeah.
And so where's the voice of the other 50%, and are their interests being equally heard?
We listen to everyone. Like, I don't even know in my staff, I don't know who's on CEA and who isn't. I listen to everyone that was watching.
And the survey goes out to
All
all
certified
certified
staff.
staff. So our information that we share here with stories is from everyone.
Okay, thank you, Kenny.
I would just like to circle back because this was what I brought up with the norms on implementation. I just feel like we need to have some more like validity to the work we do by really honing in on implementation. Because in the past, there's been things that have been discussed, like Stephanie said, years and years and years of discussion. And no, it belongs here, no, it belongs here, and ultimately, there's no resolution. And so, because like Grace says, I get input from everybody in my building, regardless of whether they are a member or not, and I air that information, whether it's in the whole group or in my subcommittee. I feel like I'm kind of saying the system's broken. We were unable to address this issue, even though you brought it to me amongst multiple people.
Not really a story, it's more of a hope. I hope that we can clearly define what the process is. I feel like coming in to this group to IBB after being at a school district that did have a clear process, I felt lost. And I wasn't sure the process, I didn't know where we go. I just had a lot of questions. And I feel like a lot of other people feel that way as well. So I think it's more of just a hope that we can get something on paper, like Autumn said, and what everyone's been saying. Now, here's the steps. Here's how we, like, Rusty, even you coming in, like, our interest is different than your interest, which is different, or it's our topic, which is our story, and like, just defining these small things that might feel like tradition, but I think I was Autumn who said we just need to have it written down.
I just wanted to say, Kenny, I appreciate, you, I remember when you asked that same question last year, and I appreciate you bringing up, the idea or wanting clarification about who, making sure that the teachers that aren't officially on a part of RFCEA, that their voices are being heard, and I think their voices are for sure. Just like Grace said, I don't know exactly who in my building is part of RFCEA. There's no, only get input from these people. I think the work here in IBB, it's my understanding that because we are people that have joined RFCEA, we have maybe more of a desire to do this type of work and represent our constituents, because we've chosen to become members of a group that advocates. But in defining the process, maybe there is room for somebody to be, for it to be open for building reps to be, and maybe it is already, I just don't know, for building reps to be non-RFCEA members.
I'm gonna go a little off topic, but I really feel like everyone has best intentions. But the only way to communicate that, it needs to be like clear communication. When things are agreed upon and then it doesn't happen, there just needs to be clear communication on it. So if we can have something on there where okay, this is what we agreed to, it didn't happen, let's get the word out. Why didn't it happen? So that everybody knows, and we're not playing telephone where like then the end message is just, there isn't clear communication. If we have clear communication amongst everyone and there is a trust, then everybody's gonna trust each other, and I think we'll be a lot more successful.
I have so much on this topic. I go back to like, and so many components, I feel like I'm so many interest on this, so many questions. And also feel a lot, as Nina named, like hope and opportunity. Like we have lots of new folks on our board, we have a new facilitator, we have a lot of new people and goals, and we also have some of this institutional knowledge still in this room. I think, Stephanie, you mentioned this question of like, what is the power of IBB, and when we're in working groups, like what can we shift? And like, I don't have that clear answer. I want us to have that clear answer. And I know that that's part of like the master agreement, and even the conversations of stepping back and making sure that the board has a clear, even the board's interests have been like, hey, we want to give you very clear guidelines of this is what you're bargaining around. I appreciate that. And so I'm super interested in that. I think one of the things in just living through turnover in our DO is like, I'm very conscious that we've not built a system if it doesn't weather staff turnover. Then we just built unicorns, and unicorns are awesome when they're right here with you, and when they're gone, it's very sad and you can't carry the work on. And so I'm very interested in
how we build those systems. That really resonates, the predictability and trust component. I think everything from like how we allocate time is really important to me, like how we set up cadence of meetings, those pieces. I know we've talked about that already, so like I get really interested and excited about this work. I also feel like I'm super aware of the weight that some of our unicorns and our small departments carry. So like, I'm really aware that when we start talking about some instructional pieces, like Stacy holds a lot of that. Financial information, Nathan holds a lot of that. HR would go and holds a lot of that. I'm super aware that like, I need to learn more of the teams that I directly support, so they're not holding that alone, because I know it makes then these things feel personal, even though we're just pushing for that clarity and transparency so that we can all carry that together, like, and that's a piece too that I think came from my work in student family services, that when we're working with like really hard stuff with kids, like one of my baseline rules for all those departments is like, nobody does this alone. You never carry a hard kid issue alone, you never carry a hard family issue alone. And I feel sometimes like, because we're tight and small, we have department heads and teams and content leads carrying everything alone. And I think that communication is a key piece of that. I think systems are a really important piece of that. And so I feel very strongly about this interest, and that it's a really important opportunity, and an opportunity for us to really get some things in writing that will outlast all of us.
I echo all of that. I feel like from the second I got here, it's been a quest nonstop to try to find out what was done before and have to find literally the person, because it's not captured anywhere. I'm like, I don't know. And just put it together and like codify it, which I think like, love the idea of defining a scope of community, because it falls right in line with like, yes, I'd like to capture it, because maybe I will become the uniform, but I'm not the one right now, like this, like a wheel. And so I think like I appreciate like the open conversation. I feel like it feels different than it did last year, where it felt very, no one ever said this to me, it felt like you should know this already. Like, how can I possibly actually, because it's literally like, I will tell you my role, I'm still finding stuff, like, I didn't know this existed. Because somewhere in the ether of the Google, somebody said, don't you know this is here? I'm like, no, but how would I know that? This is someone's personal Google thing. How would I know? So I'm very interested in this. I do think that there's stuff we can do in the interim. I'm not saying that it's like, well, we can't communicate openly until we have everything codified. I'm definitely not saying that at all. But I think it's this awareness and commitment to working together, and helping one another, to like the work of codifying processes, just capturing stuff and like making a commitment to together review it, whatever is outlined. Collaboratively.
Stacey, you just took the words out of my mouth. Like, don't you know this is done this way? Honestly, no. Yes, those unicorns are gone. A lot of institutional knowledge is gone. And some of us, not everyone, we're somewhat left to our own devices of, let me dive into Google Drive and see if I can come up with it. So I've said it before, I said it at the first meeting, and I will say it again, ready to learn, to move forward, to understand, this is not how it was done, okay, how can we work it together? So I'm all about this interest, absolutely. There is a lot that I walked into, not knowing what I'm walking into. So looking forward to learning it all.
No real stories, I'm a newbie here, but yeah, I love written instructions, and I love when things are clear, and I love when I can Google search it on my own time and answer my own question. And there is a lot of mystery around IBB, and I get a lot of that. But you know, I've been in the union the whole time I've been here, and there's still a lot that I don't know. So somebody who's farther removed, needs something. So I, nothing but, the best hopes for this process.
Yes.
I think about when we were at our peak, and as we think about the middle of COVID, and it was like a hot mess, and we were making decisions like every few seconds, and this group really functioned well and listened and trusted each other. And there's a really positive, strong relationship between board members, between district office, between our CA members, and we really had our teachers and students' best interests in heart. And so I look forward to hopefully building that community back up.
Yeah, I think it would be really beneficial to have something that's so clearly defined that when the newbies are on the teacher side, they know there's trust in the admin and that was worked well. And the admin know coming in that there's trust in the teachers, because then it doesn't feel like a tentative power play. Like, we have an admin, we don't really want to push on them and say like, this is what we used to do. Admin doesn't know where we stood before and what relationship we had. We really have a trusting relationship where we honest with admin, those kind of things. So something like this, I think, when that turnover happens, would make the waters much calmer than they've been. And I think for all teachers to know there's a resource to go like, oh, my protected plan time is being violated. I can look that up. I can see what next steps are, and I can take some power in my own hands without sometimes the fear of having to say it out loud before you're ready to say it out loud to somebody else. Like, what do I really want to do with this information? Am I ready to push my principal, or maybe I was wrong on it and good thing I kept my mouth shut before I wrote the policy. So I think that teachers really need that in their hands. I'll fix it.
I wanted to just cite some data on our RFCEA survey, which was taken by, I believe 250 teachers in the district, and I don't know how that compares to how many teachers we have, but 39% of the people who took the survey were not identified themselves as not being RFCEA members. Of that group, 87%, and we had a 1 to 5 scale on our questions. 87% identified as being 4s or 5s on the scale of being satisfied with the job RFCEA has done in advocating for teachers in IBB negotiations. Only 2.4% answered a 1 or 2. So there was some that answered a 3, 2, a small percentage that answered a 3. 89% said that the IBB rep in their building had properly represented schools' interests and positions. They answered a 4 or a 5.
Thank you.
Pass.
Pass. Pass. I appreciate the, I don't know if it's like openness this year compared to last year. I think like that we're being filmed last year, there was big contention about who can be watching, who can see this, and I think it's feels more transparent in the situation that we're in right now, and I appreciate that. And you have
Yes.
Pass.
Pass, 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 pass. You know, I'm gonna keep going.
You know, one thing that I'm also curious about, and I want to see where we can go, is I was so impressed and grateful for the collaboration around the strategic planning input session that RFCA was willing to kind of rally support for. And to me, that really felt like, and I also knew, I think as you mentioned, Heather, that we were pulling a group of folks who really were willing, like could go to that 30,000 foot level very quickly. I was just, you know, I got to kind of move the room in those conversations. It was such a strong turnout. It was so just collaborative and critical, and it felt really constructive across the board. And it felt really representative, like and it was nice, because I know that not every teacher has the bandwidth to show up for yet another like unpaid meeting after hours. And so that's right. Which is good. That was the
Noted. And so I just, you know, I'm curious about like this interest. Yes, let's talk about IBB, but I'm also interested in the parking lot of like, and here's all the other things that we can do with this representation, with this voice, with this skill set, with this ability to share communication as we go through the year. Like, to me, that felt like a very important collaborative moment in the construction of our next 5-year plan. And so I'm curious, like, what else are we missing? Like, I'm worried that we could have missed that and not even known. And so I'm also curious as to the parking lot of things that might be outside of IBB where we feel like, and just might be a helpful place to have a connection point or so. Pass.
Okay, cards. I love that when that works out. It's odd.
It reminds me, Anna, that we had right before COVID, another probably not written down captured thing of, I don't know. Well, I think of the like nickname we called it, I don't know, we actually gave it a name, we had like bat signal, I mean, if there was ever like, there's some policy that we need to have a conversation on, and we need to make this decision right now. And we would email out to everyone that was on IBB, and it would be like, if you're free, we're gonna have this meeting at this day, and all the members that could show up would be part of that meeting. And we knew, like, if you couldn't make it, that we would trust the other people. It all goes down to trust. Like, we had this big, like, we understood that we trust where people were coming from.
And that was during the summer.
Then all of IBB turned into bat signal IBB, so then I could. But yeah, that's another like structure that we had. That kind of, I don't think was ever captured in your conclusion.
Yep, in the 2020 year, we were like, oh my God, we have all this money, we don't know that we're losing, and what are we gonna do? And we made this decision, like, there was a decision we made, I think it was the coaching decision, the athletic coaching decision. We had made the decision to move forward on that, and then COVID happened. Like, we finished IBB. I remember sitting like right about where Nathan is, and Rob was sitting next to me, and he's like, oh my God, we just got the first Colorado case of COVID. That was our last day of IBB. And so we made all these decisions, and then some like the coaching decision we couldn't implement that year because of the funding that had been taken away. But it wasn't like somebody just said, okay, we don't have the money, we're not doing it. It was like, recognize that we had made this decision together and that we couldn't honor it. And so we came together to talk about, is that what we want to do? What else could we do? And how do we communicate this to people?
Thank you.
So, and I agree, there is a ton of potential for collaboration between not just IBB and the district office, but RFCEA, which was kind of something that has been on my mind since I've been in this role, leading RFCEA. As it turns out, this is an unpaid position. There are not more than 24 hours in a day, so I haven't really been able to follow through on that. But I'm glad to hear that. I'd like to explore. A lot of things that RFC collaborate. And then with the topic of representation, I just kind of want to follow up with the quantitative data that Megan highlighted. In our day-to-day experiences, leaders in the teacher space and in our buildings, CEA would probably prefer if we would distinguish more between members and non-members. Because the first question that we get asked would be, call those higher ups for advice. Teacher here. So that's not the culture of our organization, to exclude.
Agree with everything Megan said, except we did come back to.
Not here, it was like we had to wait another.
So moving it 2 weeks, I thought we did it back. Anyways, it's been done. It's an undone thing that's been still.
Yeah, it has definitely been, I
Has been
thought we had
done.
to wait a year.
Okay, good stuff.
I just want to have the representation point because I love that you're bringing up RCEA being more a part of things and where else. I think, I just want to ease anybody's mind who worries that we just speak to certain people. I think when IBB is at its best, teachers in this group are some of the most trusted people in this district. And other teachers are willing to come to us, ask us questions, knowing that we'll come forward and ask those difficult questions for them. We never shut the door on anybody, we represent everybody. And I think if RCEA becomes more of that touch point with the district, it will only help teachers feel like there's a trusted individual in their building that's being heard if they don't feel safe or strong enough to ask those difficult things themselves.
Megan.
I just wanna also say that one of the, we ask teachers in our survey, what other things they have to say about like being members or not, and a lot of most teachers who are not members identify the cost, not the fact that they think that we're not doing a good job or that we're not representing them. Almost all, I would say, just say it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And those of us who have ponied up, we just really, it's not that we're like wealthy or not, or that we believe in us more, it's just that we've gotten to that point where we've said, we believe it's important enough to pay the money and other people want. Like I've had teachers say to me, a couple teachers in my school say like, I just can't afford it, like I'm trying to buy a house and I just can't afford it. It is a lot of money. We don't have anything to do with that, but.
Anyone else, anything else to share? All right, so is that all the interest to bring forward to the group? Begonia, do you know what's gonna be new, you think?
I like coach base, it should be the coach basement.
Just curious, I mean, this would be a good time.
Breaking
to
point.
Get a break since we've completed great things. I don't, still not this time effectively. So while we're sitting here, I did ask about this a little bit before the meeting, but this is an IBB process thing. What is the process that is utilized to determine which interests the group will take on? Because that to me will be somewhat challenging. I know that this thing that you're talking about of trying to build a more deliberative process was something that I tackled with the Garfield RA2 group. They too were looking for more of that. They do not have a collaborative agreement. They have a meet and confer document. It does not describe every single detail. And so in their collaborative solutions team, which is what they call their team, they work to try and build a process. And we were doing this online, all teleconferencing, because it was right in COVID. And they met every Friday. It was the majority of the year to get to that point where they had things laid out, and still there are things they want to work on. And that is the case always with just plain board policy or with a collaborative agreement. These are not static documents. They're constantly being worked on and stuff. So I think that you're in a great place to want to find the most effective ways to be able to implement successful things to make the district a great place to be for everyone. What kind of process do we do to evaluate which particular interest will be taken on by this group? What historically have you done? Is it, I've seen things where we'll do options and we put stickers up. It's a dot thing.
That's a good.
Put a bunch of dots on different things. There's so many different ways go about it. So I asked, I should shut up, that's, tell me. What is the next step?
I wonder if we could start just, do any of these get married? Do we combine any of these first and then talk about them there, but combining them first? I think they improve teacher time, staff, health and safety. No,
Thank you.
Yeah.
'Cause
Thanks, Kenny. There's a couple up there that are similar enough that I think could be one committee, one small group.
That's good, because oftentimes in options, you can merge options, so in this case, you can merge particular topics. It seemed there's overlap between the thing that Lindsay and the admin group brought up, and then this, which is what Rob was saying earlier when we were talking about that, this is gonna come up in another interest.
Yeah, I think historically we just go back to one by one, have a discussion about, do we want to take this on? Through that conversation. And then there's consensus.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then we normally divide into subcommittees and we try to do equal representation, just so you know the process or whatever. This is what we've done historically. So that, it's like not all the high school teachers go to one subcommittee, that it would be equal representation of high school, middle school, elementary school, and then the same with like at least one district level administrator. And then it's kind of been up to the school board representatives to choose which one they want to participate in. Right? That's kind of how we've done in the past.
Well, I think it's very appropriate to try and create that building level debate amongst the committees, so you don't just give one viewpoint. Obviously, you understand, or at least this is the way I see it, these are straw committees. This is the classic term for this, where you're building up options and things based on getting a bunch of information. Then you're bringing that back to the whole team for it to run through the process. And then it's possible it can then be adapted, worked on more, revised more before it's in its final phase. And I'm making an assumption that I think some of that process goes on when you guys are meeting for the committees to share. When I'm not gonna be here, you're gonna do it after school and just kind of be informing each committee what's happening so far, how it's going. Stay up through noon?
Noon.
Okay, great.